Oh, Nancy Bieza. Ubano bengatinda mapuvesi. Oh, yimbe. Oh, Nancy Bieza. Hello, guys. What's up? What is up, guys? Yeah. Hello, Vila. Hello, Bukang. Hello, Imotep. What's up, guys? I thought I should go live today, just to say hi. I think I'm gonna be live for 30 minutes. Just to, ruffle a few feathers. I was having a conversation earlier today with a group of friends who are quite knowledgeable in indigenous history. We're having a conversation about some of the clans, and this is a thought that has been in my mind more times than I remember. That we know that the history of South Africa has not been told, because the history of South Africa has been told by the conquerors, which means the actual history of this country has not been told. Welcome, Jojo. We're talking about O.R. Tambo, O.R. Tambo. Some people would say that he was the best ANC president in history. And we're just talking about another aspect of O.R. Tambo. Who is O.R. Tambo and who are his people? Because a lot of the times when we talk about these personalities, we limit them to politics. We forget that they are people's children. They belong to clans, they belong to nations, they belong to kingdoms. O.R. Tambo. Hello, Suzanne Yahu. O.R. Tambo was from the Matri, the clan known as Amatri. A Bushman group, actually. He's a Bushman. Oh man, it's amazing, It's amazing because these are the people who fought amongst many others. These are the people who fought, and these are like heroes of the past and all that. And nobody ever talks about this part of their aspect. These struggle heroes are indigenous people of this country. And the proof is there. People who today try and hijack indigeneity in South Africa want to insert South Africans into a group of people they don't belong with. They'll try and insert being South African into being West African or being Central African. No, there's no such a thing. All South Africans that exist today, all the way down to the peninsula of the Cape, these are clans who lived here, with many other clans who existed back in the day that today are no longer in existence. Clans like Kuriqwa, Heseqwa, Qoqoqwa, Kuriqwa, etc. Those clans are nowhere to be found today. But these clans, whether you call them Khoisan, whether you call them Bushmen, whether you call them Bantu, all these three groups, these are indigenous South Africans. These are indigenous South Africans. And it's time that we take hold of that history. I think that the internet has started. It's time that we take a hold of our own history and tell it ourselves. O.R. Tambo, he was from the Amatri group of people. And today I thought I should actually share something about Amatri. Amatri are Bushmen, by the way. They are absolutely Bushmen. Together with other groups such as Amakolo. These little groups that nobody, or seemingly little groups that nobody ever talks about. These are the people, man. These are the foundational clans of this nation. The groups of people that are forgotten today. Amakolo, Amakhi, Amanci, Amancamani, all these different groups. These are the foundational nations. These are the foundational clans upon which all the other nations are built. There's no way that South African indigenous people or South African natives came from somewhere else. Hi Saida, mna ndicela ukhe undiphe meaning kaxoxwa oxoxwa phaya kozikhali. Xoxwa means sharp weapons. It means sharp. Let me actually let me break it down. So the clan you are asking me about is a clan of people known as Xoxwa people. Just for context, Makazole Mapimpi belongs to the Xoxwa people, right? This is Makazole Mapimpi's clan. So now, the name Xoxwa, it means a sharpened tool or a sharpened axe. Greetings, Tato, greetings. The name Xoxwa means a sharpened axe, like an axe to cut off something. I'm just gonna quickly check it for you so that I can give you the proper meaning. So when you say Kho, in the old Bushman languages, which are the predecessors of what we call isiXhosa or isiZulu, isiNdebele or Xitsonga or Tshivenda today, the predecessors like 600 years back, 700 years back, 800 years back, these languages would not sound as they do today. In fact, if you read a Xhosa book from 200 years ago, you will see some words, a lot of words you don't know there. Anyway, so Xoxwa is Khawxwa. Khaw means sharp or sharpened. When you sharpen something, we are ixoxa. You know, we are ixoxa. In fact, when we take a stick like this one, and you sharpen it, you cut here, you make it nice. We call that ukuqoqa, or which is the root. So o in Xoxwa means to sharpen. And then that in the word Xoxwa, that is an axe, izembe or isxenge. It's an axe with which you cut something. So Xoxwa means a sharpened axe. That's what it means. So if you are Xoxwa, you are Bushmen, and these are Bushmen who were specialists in making weapons for fighting. These are Bushmen who are specialists in making weapons for fighting. So when you hear the clan name Xoxwa, Jojo, Sikali, Butsolo Bentonga, Sikali Mazembe, it's literally describing, because when you say Jojo is a long stick that has been sharpened. It's a long stick that has been sharpened. And then Zikali means sharp tools, weapons. Butsolo Bentonga, a sharpened tool. Zikali Mazembe, sharpened axes. So it's literally just people who used to make weapons. Xoxwa are weapon makers. Now there are other clans that are related to Xoxwa, such as Gwashu, Siyakolis's clan. Remember, I said Xoxwa is Bagazole Mapimpi's clan. Gwashu is Siyakolis's clan, and Miriam Makeba. Those ones were potters. So they used to specialize in making pottery. So today you think of people who make pots, who make cups and all those things. That's what Gwashu people used to specialize in. So the thing of specializing in weapon making and working with iron and metals is not new. When you hear about people known as Amalala or people known as Abambo, these are people who specialized in mining gold, silver, copper. They were specialists in mining these things. In fact, Adambo is equivalent to the word Abantu are being an expert in ironsmithing. So these are ironsmiths, these are blacksmiths. And it's a very important thing because these names by which people were called were not random names. Like Nguni, for example. Nguni means highlanders, people who occupy high ground. You see, people who occupy high ground. As you know, Nguni people like to stay next to rivers, on mountain slopes, higher up. And then houses that tended to be at the pinnacle of the mountains, those houses were called Indlondlo. So these names, like clan names, trust me, you need to ask yourself, about them, because you will discover things about yourself you did not know. And now, imagine you are Qoqwa, and it's your first time hearing that the name Qoqwa, the name Qoqwa means sharp weapons, weapon makers, Imagine now, when you go into that industry now, today, in modern day, you go into that industry, to learn about guns, to learn about, making different types of weapons. Imagine the amount of information in your genetic code that you're going to tap into by moving towards that direction that your ancestors spent thousands of years doing. Just imagine going into that direction of pottery. As someone who did not know that your ancestors were pot makers, you go and, explore that direction of pottery. The wealth of knowledge that you will tap into. Do you understand? So it's a very important thing to know. When we talk about clan names, it's not just to intellectually masturbate on words. No. You're actually uncovering the source of your being, your essence. This can change your entire trajectory. All right. Sibata Mutaung, someone mentioned. You see, that was a man, very queer. A lot of queer people in Free State and Lesotho took the clans that existed there. For example, the fish people, the Nuba people, which means fish. They took the Bata queer people, the Kaukwa people, who are the wildcat people. They took the Kaukwa clan name. The Kwai people, aka Barwa, they took the Kwena clan name. And many others took Bafukeng. So you go to these Basotho clans, and then you realize, no man, this is a bunch of Bushmen. Someone was asking about the history of the Khila clan. The history of the Khila. The Khila, they are known as Amabamba. Just give me a second. Today you find the Khila amongst the Amakos. No problem, Giorgio. No problem, Tiega. No problem. It's fine. I'm here to explain these things. The little bit of time that I have. I will do more lives, Tato. Don't worry. From next week we won't have data problems. I'll just use mobile data instead of Wi-Fi, because I realized my Wi-Fi is poor for lives. It's good on other things, but yeah, from next week I'll just get a monthly data. So the history of the Khela people. For example, firstly, the name Khela. The name Khela, Bamba, Bodlinja, it's a clan name. You find this clan name amongst the Makosa, right? And when you say Mbamba, the word Bamba means to catch, but it's also the name of the tusks of the elephant. Amabamba Ndlovu. The tusks of the elephant, or the canines, the canine teeth of animals. So animals like dogs, lions, they have got these long canine teeth. Those teeth are called Amabamba. So now, amongst the Khela people, they also have a clan name based on that. It may be the elephant tusks, which is Amabamba Ndlovu, or Amakaka Ndlovu, because the shape, that kind of shape is Ikak. So it may be that. Khela, Bodlinja. If I'm being honest, the oldest history that I came across the Khela people is two versions. One version says these people are indigenous Xhosa, which means ngamaXhosa omthonyama. They are original Xhosa, foundational Xhosa. And then I found a lot of Khilas amongst the Amazocho people as well. So there's that conundrum. But let's go through the names first. So when we say Mbamba, remember you're saying the people of the elephant tusks. When you say Khila means an adventure. People who go. Abantu bahamba baye kukhila. Ukukhila is to go on an adventure, or possibly a hunting expedition. So that's the second part of the name of the clan name of Amabamba. And then you have the name Tangana. Bodlisilo. Now, these people, you find them among Amaxhosa. And they are accepted as indigenous Xhosa people. Obviously, if they are indigenous Xhosa, then you know they are Pwe. I don't even have to talk about that one. If you look at, who's this man? Evan Jim, I think. Or Ivan Jim. If you look at him, he's a Khila. He's a proper Khila, that one. Greetings, Pumi. Evan Jim, Khila, Tangana, Gupodlinja. So these are indigenous people of the Eastern Cape, amongst many other clans. Now, the biggest problem with our people, they think in compartments. So if you're from the Eastern Cape or the former Transkei or former Ciskei, then you can't have relations to people in KZN, and that's the dumbest thing ever. In fact, people in Eastern Cape, people in KZN, people in Mpumalanga, all the way to Botswana, Namibia, Zimbabwe, these people are the same. These people are the same. That's why you will find Usitole in KZN, you find Usitole in Mozambique, you find Usitole in Zimbabwe, and you find Usitole in Namibia. I had a friend growing up, was tall, and his father's from Namibia. And then I had a neighbor who was tall, who was from Mozambique, and I know about was tall. Are they in KZN? So it's the same thing with these clans. Even the so-called original Bushman clans, such as Amaqoma, Amaqoqo. These people are there in Botswana, they are there in Zimbabwe, they are there in Mozambique. So Amaqoma in Eastern Cape, it's the Homani in Northern Cape. Amangqongo in Eastern Cape, it's the Ngqung in Northern Cape. Ngqwa in Botswana. Ontsundu, they are called Ngqung or Ngqu people, which means dark. So we have to then get away from this mind that someone who is a Khila should only exist among Amagalega or Amachakhabe. No, you find the Khila people also amongst Amazocho, Amambondwe. It's the same people. So as I was saying, I'm going to be updating my network as of next week. I just thought I needed to do this live so that I can open up some other features. So next week I can hold a panel. People can ask me questions live. So that's why I'm doing this live today in this very odd hour, because I don't normally do lives this time. So I'm just doing it so that I can open up the feature to have people join and ask questions live and converse back and forth. So as I was saying previously, that our leaders of the struggle and all that, when we talk about them, sort of like, compartmentalize their existence into politics. That's why nowadays people cannot talk about Mandela comfortably. People cannot talk about Mandela comfortably because he was a sellout. But you can talk about Mandela and not talk about politics. You can talk about Mandela and talk about his roots as a royal son, a prince, in his lineage of Amadlomo. You can talk about Mama Winnie Madikizela without mentioning the ANC, because Mama Winnie comes from a lineage of Amangutyana amongst the Mpondo people. But the Amangutyana themselves are actually Zocho in origin. They are indigenous. So yeah, the word Khila means an adventure. So abantu bakwa you would say people who go to expeditions. Think about it this way, Khila is an expedition, an adventure, like how people used to go when they hunt elephants. When you hunt an elephant, you can't hunt an elephant in one day. You needed an entire week or even 2 weeks at times if it's a bull. You needed to make a big fire around this elephant. Men and women came with their cattle and animals, with water, with milk, with amasi, with all these things to stay and camp. So the whole thing about camping, we've been doing it for thousands of years. They had to go on a khila to hunt these elephants. So the word khila would be in reference to something like that. Yes, amabambela ebukhosini as well. That's very true. Someone asked me about the Nquba people. Villa asked about the Nquba people. Abakwanquba, Khudulu. They are originally the foundational clan of Amampondomise. Yes, they are the foundational clan of Amampondomise. So you'll find that they are called Ngwevu or Zulu. The Nquba people are also known as Zulu in Eastern Cape. Kabakwa Zulu. Not to say Kabakwa Zulu wakamalandela or wakamakeba. No. Abakwa Zulu, kwaskhomo, kwachangisa. These are the people that were involved in the early Xhosa history of the battles that took place between the Chawe Nation, Kikha Nation, Jwaga Nation, and the Kwemte Nations. Those battles that took place, the Nquba people, the Khudulu people were involved. They were on the winning side. They fought as mercenaries on the winning side, to a point where amongst the Maxhosa they were given the honor that they are gonna have a bit of land, a bit of land. So the name came through. So you find in Nquba amongst Amagalega, you find in Nquba amongst Amampondomise, you find in Nquba amongst Amachakhabe. In fact, Nquba is a normal clan. I grew up, we had a neighbor, my mother's friend, Mama Nquba. And then regarding the Nquba River actually is the fish river, the great fish river. For example, in Kwemana or Kwekwe go up, they say Oub Kama, which means the Nquba River. So Oub and Nquba is the same to the Basotho when they say Tlhapi, which later comes as Nhlanzi. So you see Nquba, Oub, Tlhapi, Nhlanzi, which in Kwinkia is Qwensi, Nhlanzi, Oub, Tlhapi, Nhlanzi. So it's the people of the fish, the fishermen. It's the fishermen. And then someone mentioned about Kwalo, the Kwalo people. Hey, you see, this is a very interesting thing about the Kwalo people, né? Kwalo, Zangwa, Nutu. You find them amongst the Mampondo. But there are many Emampondweni, like Kontabankulu, you find them a lot there. In fact, the Mpondo people regard these people as one of the original Mpondo clans, the Kwalo people, right? So I will say their clan names now. You have Kwalo, Zangwa, Mlanjana, Ngudu, Nanto, Nyikila, Hetse, Obese, Msebe, Mkakaho, Nhlanjana. These are Zangwa people, right? And then you also have others who say Mpako, Asana, Mahluta, Chongwa Zinjaba, Ngamampondo. But here's the interesting thing. If you go to Botswana, you will find a group of Bushmen who are called Tsogwa. Come on now. You will find a group of Kwe Bushman people who are called Tsokwa, just like the Zangwa people who are also Kwalo. Tsokwa, Zangwa. We need to think now. We need to think beyond what we've been programmed. Because to divide people, you need to convince them that they are not the same. You find that the Zangwa came as a merger between the Tsaukwa and the Mpondo Royal House. That merger between the Tsaukwa Bushmen and the Mpondo Royal House gives you the Zangwa. That's why amongst the Mpondo you find names like Mtwa, Siwula, Damase. Mtwa means Bushman, a person. Siwula is literally a Bushman nation. There in Botswana today, Sehura. You can go and search this and confirm this information. Sehura. It's a Bushman name. In fact, Sarah Bartman's real name was Sehura, Siwula. She was not Sarah Bartman, she was Siwula. So that's why amongst the Amampondo you'll find names like Mtwa, Siwula, and Damase. Damase means a child of a Bushman and Umbo. So a child of a Umbo and Umtwa, they give you Damase. That's why in Namibia you have Damara. I hope it makes sense. Are Gwashu, Sukwini, and Statu the same people? No, they are not the same people in the sense that Gwashu are an individual nation, Sukwini an individual nation, Statu an individual nation, but they are all related. Now let's go. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. So, who are the Gwashu? I already mentioned the Gwashu, I already mentioned the Gwashu. I just wanna read their clan names. I'm gonna read the clan names of Gwashu, Sukwini, and Statu. Gwashu, Sukwini, and Statu. Let's start with Statu. Statu is Statu. Hisana. Ndebe, Kopoi. Hase. Malawana, Sitsumo. They are Kwe. No debate about it. No debate about it. Sitatu, Malawana, Hase, Kopoi Ndebe. When you say Hase, you're saying Ihashe. Hase is Kwekwe Gwab for a horse. When you say Hase, you're saying Ihashe. These are the horse riders. Wait for me there. Gostatu abo ngabathwa amalawo ayixoxisa. Now let's check Gwashu. Gwashu are Gwashu magorha kamanzini. Now remember I told you Gwashu means pot makers. Gwa is the clay. Clay. When you say Gwa, you talk about clay. When you say Shu, you talk about the pot. Gwashu, clay pot people. It's Gwashu Kis. So Gwashu magorha kamanzini. Yabase. Magwashu amnyama nenkomo zawo. Amagwashu are a dark-skinned group of people. They are dark-skinned. It's very important that we understand that to be queer, you don't need to be yellow. No. You just need to be a queer. That's it. So when you say Gwashu, Magwashu amnyama nenkomo zawo, the dark clay pot people, like their cows. So it tells you that these are queer people who keep cattle. Not this nonsense that all queer people must stay in the bush. All queer people must go around naked. Not all queer people do that. Some queer people do it perfectly so. It's a beautiful life. My ancestors come from the caves of Lesotho. Beautiful life. But some others, they didn't. They stayed next to the rivers. They stayed, that's why we call them river people. So, Gwashu, Magorha kamanzini, Yabase, Magwashu amnyama nenkomo zawo, komo zikaNxele, zikaKhamlana. So they are the people of Nxele, people of Kamlan, right? Now, I want to read for you the Sukwini now. Sukwini is called Mtwa. Yes, Siakolis is Gwashu. Miriam Makeba is also Gwashu. Both of them, they're Gwashu. And then Statu was Zahara. Zahara was Mastatu. You see. And then Sukwini now. Sukwini is Lao. Mtwa, Sandalanga, Jambomvu, Khasha, Vet boy. Kwelane Dibash. You know when you say vet boy, you're saying white boy, which means they used to be light skinned. When we hula them, when we add onto the clan names of Sukwini, we say Ngomos Gatwama, Songa Nguboroto, Mvabaiketile, Mngaili Nqindi, Nqindi Inhloko, Tiki Aivumani Napokoto. Why are the Sukwini called Lao Mtwa? Because they are Kwe. So all these three clans you just mentioned, Mtwa, Sukwini, they are the Kwe people of the mountains, by the way. I will explain what the name Sukwini means. Sukwini is Tatu and Gwashu. They are all three of these people are Kwe. They were originally from a group of people who had one king, Inzati. In 1689, I think, when Isaac Schreiber went to Somerset East, when Isaac Schreiber went to Cradock, to Graafrenet, Inzati was alive. So the Sukwini, your Start, your Gwashu, your Nahwane, and all these other groups, your Giko, they were all independent as the Gunukwa, Gunukwebe, Inkwa, Amkunkwa. But today you will figure that they would be called Gunukwebe, all of them. Sukwini means the Bushmen of the mountain. Sukwini is the Bushman of the mountain. It's Swa Kauken. Swa Kauken. Swa means a Bushman. It's a name that was used. Kauken, Ikauka. It's a mountain. Come on now. It's a mountain. Come on now. Kauka. All three of them are related in that sense that they are all Kwe people of the Eastern Cape, but they were independent houses. Now the Gurikwa people, they are obviously one of the Kwe clans of Eastern Cape, Western Cape. Some of them you may find in Northern Cape. These people are said to be descendants of the Kora. So the Gurikwa, they are said to be descendants of the Kora. The name Gurikwa itself is said to come from Ora or Uri, which means top. So when you say Uri, you mean top, like Zulu means top or high. So it would mean then Gurikwa would mean the highlanders. It's people who live on slopes. So there's going to be two valleys. There's going to be a valley with a river intersecting the valley. On the slopes, you'll find people who live there. Those people have a view of all the topography. Those people are called highlanders. Nguni, Gunu, Guni, Gona, or Guri. All these words mean the exact same thing. People from the top. People of the top. People of the highland. They are said to be a Kora people, like the Gorahorikwa, Gurikwa, Usin Qais, Nosini, Washe Qais, Washe, Arima Qais, Ngele, Wahan, Mangana. Many Kora clans, maybe 100 even. Kora people probably have the most detailed history of all the Kwe nations. They probably have the most detailed history, and they are possibly, the Kora people are possibly the most dispersed here inside South Africa, because you find Kora history in Cape Town, you find Kora history in the bigger Western Cape, you find Kora history in the whole Eastern Cape, you find Kora history in KZN, you find Kora people in Free State, in Lesotho, in Northern Cape. Kora people were all over the country. But their true origin is in the source of the Orange River, which is Ngu Qarib, so-called Qarib. Ngu Qarib means the Black River. So that's why Basotho say Singu. That's why the Zulu say Isangu. And the Xhosa say Igqili. Igqili means Qarib or Qirib. It means river. So the Kora are so spread out in the country. You find their foot. Whether you talk about the Ete people of the Eastern Cape, Ete, the mother of Steve Biko was Mam Ete. These are Kora people. Einikwe or Anikwe, Etekwe. These are the river people. Steve Biko's mother was Ete, a descendant of the Kora. You have in KZN Amakulu, the Kulu people, the Kabash, which is interesting because amongst the Kora, you have the Kulu people, the Springbok people. Kulu means Springbok. It's amazing. That's all I have to say. It's an amazing history, and we have to tell it ourselves now. Earlier, I was mentioning that OR Tambo comes from the clan of people known as Amachi. Amachi are a queer people amongst Amampondo. There are many queer people amongst Amampondo, by the way. There are many. The problem is that when we are the ones who say it, everyone doesn't want to accept it. But when a European scholar writes a book about it, then it's history. So it's only history when a European says it. But when I say it, who has lived this and has gotten information from my parents, who got information from their parents, who got information from their parents and their parents and their parents, hundreds of years worth of in history. When I say it, it's wrong. Amongst Amampondo and amongst Amampondo Mise, there was a group of people who still lived in caves in the 70s, known as Ganga people. The Ganga people still lived in caves. Today, the Ganga are 100% Mpondo and Mpondomse. In fact, in the Tsolo region, there's a river known as Ing, which means the Vivelde River. Mu is actually means black. Mu Gaup, black Veldebies, in Butuma. There's a river there. On the river banks, there are caves. I'm talking about the 70s. I'm not talking about something from 300 years ago. There are caves there where the Ganga people used to live. Where are the Ganga people today? They are amongst Amampondo, amongst Mampondomse. So you cannot just then discount those truths. The Ganga were the last standing group of people who are still living that life. Not to say they were not related to the Mpondomse and the Mpondo. They were related. They're the same people. But they still held on to that life of living in the caves. In fact, the Ganga people were the rainmakers in Mpondo land and Mpondomise land. They were called to practice rainmaking in times of drought. That's why today when you see this Xhosa and Mpondo people dance around a fire, they make a circle and they dance anti-clockwise like the solar cosmic bodies. It's the rain dance. It's the dance of the full moon. It's the dance of the full moon. So the Ganga moved from the caves along the Ngu River and joined the villages. Same thing in so-called former Siskaya. You find it, there's a place called Kwadaliwe. It's full of caves and drawings on the cave. Those people lived that life. They left that life and joined the societies next to them. And this is what we are uncovering here. This is what we are uncovering. This is what we are sharing, that the people today that exist, regardless of Ngabambo, Gamalala, what, it's a merger of Kwe and Abembo nations. Every nation that you know. Whether you talk about Amazizi, whether it's Amabele, that's why they're called Kunta, by the way. Whether it's Amahlubi, Amahlubi, they are full of Kwe nations. For example, amongst Amahlubi, you have them Simang people. Them Simang, these are Kwe, these are Bushmen. You have the Kaba people. In fact, if you look at the abantu bakwamsimang, they say it with their own mouths. Bangabathwa boduli, bangabathwa abaluthuli. They are the dusty bushmen. Hey, they united with the royal house of Udlomo. Amongst the Mahlubi, you go to Amabele, you find the name Kunta. Kun, we know Kunta means the Kun people. You go to Botswana now, look for people known as Kun people. Kunta. Kun means the Kun people, and Ta means Abantu. Kunta. Amongst Amazizi, you find names like Nwabe for old ancestors. Nwabe is the wildcat. You find names like Kokolo. You find names like Khenwa. And you don't think maybe there's a reason why these names, Khenwa, Kokolo, Nwabe, Uza. These are clan names that are a result of old alliances amongst indigenous nations of this land. The reason why I'm focusing on Abambo is because people tend to assume that there's a group of people who came from somewhere and then moved, almost like there's some delivery package. It didn't happen, man. These are nations that formed over thousands of years through mergers. Even in Mapungubwe. Why do you think they in Zimbabwe, the Ndebele call that kingdom of theirs Umtwagas? Why? Anyway, I was still saying about Oar Tambo, that Oar Tambo is from the clan known as Amatri. Amatri or Magoba. Abantu Bagamagoba. He's from those people, and those people are, yes, they are Bushmen. They are Bushmen. Amatri or Magoba. They are amongst the Amazocho people. They are amongst the Amazocho people. Someone asked me about Blangwe. About Blangwe. We had a discussion about this, about the Blangwe people with some Blangwe clan members. Someone asked if they are not the Burakwe, they are not related to the Burakwe Kwe people. And then I'll come back to that. I want to address the name of the Amaziz, Okuza. Then the name Kuza, it's obvious it was the name of a chief, right? But today it's a surname amongst Amaziz. It's a surname. In fact, when I was still in high school, we had an award ceremony. We had an award ceremony, and the guest speaker was a guy called Siya Kuza. A guy called Siya Kuza. He was the guest speaker. He actually invented some kind of rocket fuel, and therefore they named some asteroid body with his name. He's a Zizi. Firstly, we need to understand that Amazizi never really spoke isiZunda. Amazizi spoke something similar to Siswati, which today exists as Siphuti, at least the most reliable remnant is Siphuti. So Amazizi were actually called Ematiti. Ematiti. That's why a couple of their ancestors are called Titi. Ematiti. Now you have a couple of houses of Amazizi. Amazizi Akwalanga. This is the main house, the senior house. You find them in Lesotho, but also in the Eastern Cape. In Lesotho, when they say their clan names, they will be saying Langa Chabela. Kitokupha lipiswana. Sike bathu emlabo lokawelwa lo layithi goja netotsi. Kuba yito leti baba getulu. Yithi labawela gewobo qedza bayidla liyabawelisa qedza bayilela. Those are amazizi of Langa in Lesotho. They will mention their ancestors such as Gubo, Titi. You see, Gubo Titi, it's actually Ngubo and Zizi. And then you have another house of Langa again, who come from the line of Ndlovu and Mafu. These ones in Lesotho still exist today. You will find them under the name Emabulani or Mapulane Kasisutu. Emabulani, these are the people of Langa. They were called Bahalanga back in the day. When they say their clan name, they'll be like Sidla Mukupa Uchisa. Asikatalwa ufati. Sitseukie elitulwini satoko tsitsinini elphasini. Sikapa ngemuva letasi. So what they mean is that they descending on their back downwards. They came from the sky and they landed on the land. They were not born of a woman. Those are the Dlamini of Langa, of Mafu, of Ndlovu. These people, you will notice their totem is the sky. It's rain, actually. Their totem is rain. Abantu bevula. When they are praising themselves, they will say Sikapa gevula. Aine. So that's one group of Amazizi. Abaputi, you find Amazizi there amongst the Abaputi. Now the other groups of Amazizi, such as Amazizi Akwajama, Amazizi Akwalamiyeni, Amazizi Akwatenya, Okubunglasha, Okubulamagwala. These ones, you find them a lot in the Eastern Cape and KZN. So the name Uza, I've never really looked at it, but you see, when you're riding a horse or a cow, an ox, like our ancestors used to do back in the day before they adopted horses, they used to ride oxen. When you ride an ox, there's a cord that you have in tambo. When you pull that ntambo, which means you wanna push your ox pack to move forward. When you pull that, utiquzu, yaquza or yaquzula, which means you're pulling back. That means you are taking leadership. You are driving something. So uquza could mean that someone who's driving something, someone who's pushing something forward. So I think that's the most reliable interpretation. It's probably that. Uquza is someone oquzula intambo, someone who's pushing things forward. Someone umuntu osunduzayo, umsunduzi wendaba, you know. And then there's another name, Khenwa. Hey, this one. I think Khenwa means surrounded, actually. Or it means sword. Because there's a sword called Khenwa that was used to cut things. You see? So someone who's been cut off with a sword, or someone who's surrounded. So yeah, but it's up for, for exploration. Those kind of things, we want to explore them. Because remember, names are not just words, they're influenced by events. So when we decipher etymological origins of names, we have to also have the context under which that name came about. So it might mean this, but in this particular context, it might mean something different. So we should always be open to that until we get more facts around the birth and whatever events happened, you see. Someone asked me about the name Mondokheni. Mondokheni. Ingaba lithetha ukuthini? What does that mean? It means at the mountain or at the refuge, at the precipitous rugged hill. Ingondokha comes from the word ingqondo okanye ingqonde. Ngqondo or ngqonde means a refuge, a place you can hide, a rugged hill, a rugged precipitous mountain. Ingqonde. So a place that is ngqondocha, which means it's ngqonde like, it's almost like ingqonde. Therefore, it's a place that is full of mountains or rugged hills, or a place that's precipitous, a place that you can hide properly during battles. So ngqondocheni means at the precipitous mountain, at the hill, at the refuge. That's what it means. Pure. It means that. In fact, there's a place there, that side of I think Matatiele, I'm not sure. No, called Ezingqondo. There's a place called Ezingqondo. So yeah, that's what Ngqondocheni means. A place full of rugged, it's very rough mountains. In fact, there's a mountain in Lady Frere called Ingqonde. It's in Lady Frere. They used to stay Abatemwe at that time, back in the day. So that it's basically wherever there's mountains, that name will come. Okay, back to what I was talking about. I'll talk about Aman, the people of OR Tambo. The reason why I'm talking about the people of OR Tambo, Aman, is to draw people's attention to something about our leaders, our former leaders in the country. Remember, the battle for South Africa started with the royals who were still independent, whether Ngamaxhosa, Abatwa, which is the same people, honestly, but the different nations, AmaZulu, AmaNdebele, Bapedi, Basotho, AmaHlubi, AmaBhaca, all these different groups, they fought independently for their lands. Then they realized the threat was too strong. They had to fight jointly now. Obviously, that was not without challenges, because some of our own people worked with the enemy. So that called for a different strategy now. So when the kings were getting arrested and being taken to Robben Island and other different prisons, it meant that our people were conquered. Our people were conquered. So the royal families, a lot of them sent their children to school. In Eastern Cape, they sent their children to school in the 1800s already. Early 1800s to the 1850s, the kids were going to school already. Where the kids teachers, some became lawyers, but they basically started getting educated now. So the royal families became the most prominent political people now, or descendants of royal families became politicians, basically. That's what it is. The earliest politicians in South Africa were royal people, because remember, it was the royals who were running things, and therefore the royals were the first to receive education, and therefore they were the first to get into politics. Besides royals, you had prominent people, prominent politicians, leaders, educated people, professionals, and business people who also joined politics early on. This is like late 1800s already. So before the formation of the ANC and whatever the predecessor of the ANC was, royal nations started to organize together through their descendants and the descendants of the warriors, the chief councillors and all that. These people were the early politicians of this country. But when apartheid came through, now the descendants of royal families were already full into politics. That's why you find that Albert Luthuli is a royal. Winnie Madikizela Mandela is a royal. Nelson Mandela is a royal. Holomisa is a royal. Jacob Zuma has royalty in his blood. All these people, they're of some royal lineage somewhere, somehow. It's not by mistake, because it was the royals who fought, then their kids got educated, and so on and so on. So it trickled down. This right now, we are seeing the first generation of peasants or common people getting into leadership in the country. So when I draw the attention to former leaders like O.R. Tambo, Madikizela Mandela, Winnie Mandela, I draw this attention with the intention to go back to what they were. They were royal people, you know. We have to look at their clan names, and see which nations they came from. So O.R. Tambo is one of the most beloved leaders of the ANC. Is one of the most beloved leaders of the ANC. He was a bushman. O.R. Tambo, I'm saying this without any fear. He was a bushman from the group of people known as Amani. Kabatwa, they are bushmen. Just like Miriam Makeba was Kwe, just like Krizani was Kwe, just like Mandela. All these people, that's what I'm trying to show you here. These people are Kwe. So this is not a black government, as some liars who work with AfriForum like to say, oh no, the black government, this is not black, this is an Kwe government. Obviously, they've been compromised. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the true origin of the freedom fighters of this country. They are the indigenous people of this land. You can go to the Basutu, Bakwena, you can go to the Bapedi, all of them. Kabatwa. Oh! That's what I'm trying to show you here. Even Mama Winnie Mandela, she's from the Ngutyana people. No, Mlungwana, I think. Mlungwana, which means little white men. The thing is, when Mlungwana, this word used to be used for queer people. Mlungwana, it used to be used just like Lau is used for queer people. But none of these words are actually their real names, because Lau, it means a Malay. Mlungwana, okay, it's usually a short, light-skinned person. So Mama Winnie Mandela is Ngutyana. Yeah, these are queer people, man. These are queer people, and until our people see it, that's what I'm trying to show here. When I talk about these political leaders, you will see there's one theme. 90% of them, one theme. And a lot of people get confounded by phenotype, like appearance. You can't get confounded. You can't be discombobulated by appearance, because we are the source of being African. You cannot honestly tell me that you expect everyone to look dark in South Africa, or to look light skinned, or to look brown. No. We have to be different shades. As indigenous people, we have to be different shades. We are the source. Singumthombo. We are the source. We are the fountain of being. We are the core of being African. We are the essence of that. We are the essence of that. So you will see Nelson Mandela has a particular phenotype. Bantu Holomisa has a different phenotype, which is an indigenous phenotype in and of itself. Mandela has one type of phenotype. Holomisa has another type of phenotype. Goethe Mandashe, Kwati, indigenous people, he has his own phenotype as well. So this is how we must think about these things. We can't think about these things from a Caucasoid mindset, a deprived mind. We must think from a healthy mind, an indigenous mind. So O.R. Tambo, when next time you talk about him, you must always mention Bushman, Miriam Makeba, Kwe, Krizani, Kwe, Mandela, Olumiza, all of them. The reason why we need to talk about these things is because the enemies, or the descendants of the enemies of these original kings, are lying. about the descendants of these kings. So now, when lies are being told, truth needs to shine. We can't keep quiet. Truth has to shine. I don't give a damn who gets hurt or offended. We need to tell the truth. From Cape Town to Limpopo, from Limpopo to Botswana, we must talk and unite these indigenous nations. That's the only way forward. Now, amongst us, there will be those who will be compromised. It was always like that. It's nothing new. Treat those ones as unfruitful trees. We break off the branch, we throw into the fire. Because the fire must continue. The ones who are compromised, who have become a weapon against their own people, they must be cut off and thrown into the fire. The ones who bear fruit, who are planted on fertile soil, those are the ones we must continue. When I speak in my tongue, abo bangumhlaba othambileyo, abo bayimithe ngenaziqhamo, masibaqhawule sibatshise emlilweni. Because what we cannot do is waste time on people who are not willing to free themselves. And to free yourself, you don't have to look outside of who you are. You have to look within. Your freedom is inside. It's not outside. Okay. I'm going to proceed now to the next half of this live. I started by talking about these indigenous clan names, the clan names of the former leaders. I just need to check an email quickly. I don't know why this thing is not connected. I want to talk about these African surnames and English surnames. Just give me a minute, I'm coming now. I want to talk about these African surnames. It's not a rare thing to see a Xhosa person with the surname Groot Boom. I myself personally, I went to school with two brothers whose surnames were April, the month. I also went to school with a guy whose surname was Bosman, Siamtanda Bosman. He was a good friend of mine. I also know a guy whose surname was May, the month. So why is it some people have English surnames, Afrikaans surnames, some have surnames with biblical names like Abraham. I know a girl whose surname is Abraham. Plaki. You see, there's a person, Basa's surname is Plaki. It's our history, guys. We can't run away from that. It's our history. One, some of these surnames are translations. Yo, your mother's name is April. Yo. Yeah. I went to school with two guys. They were both April. In fact, I had a teacher, a Xhosa teacher. Her surname was Steerman. Her name was Steerman. Bongani, you're asking, aren't clans and tribes colonial terms? Well, I mean, obviously, they are not African terms. When you say clan, it's not an African term. When you say tribe, it's not an African term. I think clan is just a replacement of our own words. Clan is a replacement. I wouldn't say it's not an imposed word. So a clan, sisizwe, sisibongo, or isiduk, depending on the culture you come from. Tribe, it's not a real word because even the Europeans don't use those words. They call themselves nations, but we don't even have the word nations. We don't have the word clan. It's English words. We don't have those words. We are nations, but even that nation and isizwe are two different things. Sizizizwe thina. That would then mean I must stop speaking English, and I'm afraid most people would not be able to understand if I speak my language. Ngoba ndizawuthetha into enzulu apha baxakane abantu bathi inkamalala. Xa sendiqalisile uthetha nzulu bazawuxakana abantu bathi inkamalala, yabo. So kuye kunyanzeleke ngoku. Kuye kunyanzeleke uba ndithethe isiNgesi. Ukwenzela noba umuntu ngumvenda ndikwazi ukufikelela kuye. Ngoba xa ndiqale ungena nzulu kwesi sakwaXhosa bazawudideka, uyaqonda? Ngoko ke masitheni ingcembe wena. Masitheni ingcembe sithi chu. Kula makhamandela sikuwo. Ngoba kwa isidingo sokuba sithethe isiNgesi xa sithetha sisodwa bantwana bomgquba singamangqangqa elilizwe. Kwakuba funeka sithethe isiNgesi yingxaki kwaleyo. Sisengxakini kwaleyo ngoba izinto zethu ngoku zithe ziyabhentsiswa phambi kwabenye imizi. Zibhentsile izinto zethu kubaphambukeli kweli lizwe ngoba kaloku sithetha ulwimi lwabo. Kodwa ngoku xa ndizawuthetha lasekhaya ndincancebeleni ndiyoyika, ndinexhala. Ndiyaxhalaba ngoba umfo wakwaSinthumule kwavenda akazundiva xa ndingena nzulu, uyabona? So masichule singcambaze nje kakuhle wena. Sawude sifikelele kwilixa exeni apho sizawukwazi uba sicamngce kakuhle ngeelwimi zethu xa sicangcatha ke kule michanca ibubungcipheko, ngoba izizwe zethu sebungciphekweni sithetha nje. Bekungakuhle xa sinothetha ulwimi zethu. Bekungakuhle xa sithetha ulwimi zethu sifihle ezi zinto sizithethayo. Xa sikwazi. So sizawumane sithi clan, simane sithi tribe. But maybe I'll try and use words like cultural group or ethnic group. But when I say clan, I'm ndithetha ngesibongo, ngesiduko. When I say tribe, ndithetha ngesizwe. Yeah. Anyway, I was still explaining names like Plaiki, April. These names came about. They came about because one, there were translations of indigenous names. For example, the name Qabi. Qabi means the rider, a horse rider or a cow rider, or someone who rides something. So you'll find that in Afrikaans they will change this to rider. You see? And then you find name like Njebo. Njebo, they will change it to Boatman or something like that. So that's one. These names were translations. Two, these names were slave names. Yes. Our people were enslaved. We have to admit it. Our people were enslaved. I know a lot of people, they like to say, no, so we were never enslaved. Not the way you think. Because people think to be enslaved, you would have to be sold at the market. No. When you work in a farm and your payment is a bag of maize meal, your payment is a bottle of wine like our ancestors got paid, you are a slave. You are a slave. In fact, in the Eastern Cape, it was called Ukukhanuka. Amakhanuka were slaves. Amakhanuka were slaves because you can't farm in your own land to this day. So we have to admit the fact of the matter that we were enslaved. That's why our ancestors have names like Albert and Alfred. What is Albert Luthuli? What is that? Yintoni Albert? Yini leyo? What is Albert? What is Nelson? What is Winifred? These are all slave names. So that's the first thing. We have to admit that. It's not only the surnames. In fact, it was names before. Grootboom was a name. So those were slave names. How did they come about? How did the slave names come about? The slave names came about because when you went to a farm You couldn't expect the Dutch boer to pronounce your name Kukega or Kakambile or Ele, whatever. He didn't want to hear that nonsense. All he wanted to hear was his own language. So if you are Kukega, he's gonna call you April. If you are Namash, he's gonna call you December or November or whatever it comes to his mind. 2, if you are from a specific place, then you'll be called Fan, that place. For example, slaves who came from Angola, they were called Fan Angola. Slaves who came from the Guinea, they were called Fan Guinea. You see? Slaves who came from Asia or places like Bengal, they were called Fan Bengali. These are the slaves who were married to a lot of white people back in the day. In the Western Cape, the Cape winelands, a lot of those original winemakers were slaves, black slaves from Africa and Asia. They were called the blacks of the Cape. Once they are emancipated, they were called free blacks of the Cape. So these names then came from that. They came from Ukuhanuka, voluntary slavery. You are hungry, you go and offer yourself. They came from slave, came from with ships. You were given the name by your master. That's why you called him Bas. You called him Bas because he was your master. You couldn't call him by name. My own grandfather, my maternal grandfather, his name was Zilindile. But the white people didn't call him that nonsensical name to them. They called him Willem. His name was Willem. My grandmother, my paternal grandmother, her name was Angelina. In fact, her whole family, all her siblings had English names. Margaret, Angelina and all that. My father, his name is Kunku. But guess what he was called by the Afrikaners? He was called Bosman and Samuel. So these are slave names. We just have to accept it. They are slave names, but also because we were conquered. Now, whether the conquest came from fairness or what, we can talk about that some other day. So sometimes those names are not direct translations. Because I've seen people make the false attestation that sometimes the slave names are direct translations. Sometimes they are not. So you'll find a slave name like Grootboom. A slave name like Grootboom, which means big tree. It doesn't mean Mtimkulu of the Amahlubi people. It's just someone maybe who lived next to a big tree. Because Unokolo Grootboom, for example, she's not Hlubi. She's from my clan. Mamfen. So the name Grootboom then must have come based on other reasons. So yeah, these English surnames, most of the time they came from slavery. But there's a huge number of former Xhosa speaking people who became colored, who reclassified as well. Some Xhosa people reclassified to be colored in the Eastern Cape and in the Western Cape. They reclassified. I've even watched a video here on TikTok of a descendant of Xhosa people who are now colored, who reclassified themselves to be colored. So some Xhosa people are colored today. Some black people previously are colored today. By the way, all these names, black, colored, what, they are not real. They don't exist in our cultures. Those things are not real. They're stupid, useless names, but I'm using them for the context, for the colonial context within which we find ourselves. So there's also that now, where some colored people were reclassified, became colored. Some colored people were reclassified to being black. Yep. There's actually recorded history of this happening. Here on TikTok, I've seen a couple of people whose ancestors were black, now they reclassified as colored. Sawubona Dabizit. Okay. Now let me read the questions. Yam, you can ask your question. You can ask your question. You said you have a question when I'm done. You don't want to derail. Yeah, you can ask the questions now. So these surnames, came from these multiple aspects. Slave name, you were a farm worker who lived in the farm, you were basically a slave, indentured servant, Chanuka. You were reclassified, or you adopted an English name and Xhosalized it or Zulufied it. For example, John Dan, the English name, in isiZulu is Jantoni. Shepston Somtseu. Amongst the Xhosa, you had Colonel McKinnon, who became Makinana. It's a surname today. Colonel McKellen, it became Makeleni today. Colonel McGrath became Magila today. Madondile, which was McDonald back in the day. All these, today you think someone, Jiningisi, Komanisi, Jiningisi is Jennings. It's Jennings, an English surname. Komanisi, it's Cummings, it's an English surname. Baum, it's an English surname. Bantom, these are English, these are British surnames, these are original, these are Scottish surnames, these are Celtic names, man. Mackenzie, it's Celtic, it's Irish, Celtic, Scottish. These are names of British people. These are Brittonic names. But today, you find that they've been Xhosalized. You find McKinnon became Makinana. McKellen became Makeleni. Cummings became Komanis. Jennings became Jiningis or Jilingis. Mackenzie in isiXhosa became Mackenzie. McGrath in isiXhosa became Magila. So there's also that group of surnames now that became adopted. Okay, so there's another question. Why do you think other languages are robust in cliques and others are less so? That's a good question. That's a good question. So cliques have gotten lost over time, ne? And when I say they've gotten lost, I mean even in so-called clique languages, even in clique languages themselves, cliques have gotten lost. There's a comment here from Gallery Geek. I'm not a professional artist, but interested in illustrating some of this story. No, we can work on that. You can always inbox me. We can work on that. We can illustrate some of this. I have a few little excerpts, little stories that you can illustrate, little battles, etc. We can talk about that. Absolutely. Cliques have gotten lost over time. And I think our ancestors probably saw this happening. Because in isiXhosa, for example, there are words that had the click, the bilabial click, the kissing sound. Words like adi, ugu, ongo. So if you go to Khoi languages like Kho, you will find the words like Wadi for the springbok, which is Badi in isiXhosa. Ugu for something small like a mouse, which is Impuku in isiXhosa. Ubu, they use Ubu for rhino, but in isiXhosa I think it's a hippo, Imvubu. So that click has gotten lost completely. And it was replaced by bilabial implosive B, as in Baba, and bilabial explosive B, and then sometimes by the P sound. So the U became replaced with a P or a B. It happened even in Khoi languages. Now, the second aspect of cliques being lost is when words are being respected. So instead of saying ukuxhaxhaza, which means to flow, people say utyatyaza. Utyatyaza. Instead of saying mqikaba, which means a lot of blood, people will say umtyityaba, because they are respecting the clique. So it's almost like sometimes there was a point where cliques were used ritualistically, and only people who had been initiated in that particular aspect would use cliques. This happens when young men come back or go to the mountain, then come back. When they're there, they use a lot of words that have clicks that you won't find in modern day languages. Even young women, etc., even wives, when they get married, back in the day, they used a lot of words, old words. And when you find these words, you will go to, like, maybe in Botswana, to the Bushmen who live in the desert, you'll find these words there. They're used normally there. So there's also that aspect of ukuhlonipha. Izihlonipho meant that the common people are not going to use a specific type of grammar in their speech. Only when they go through the initiation, regardless of what they do, whether you're initiated as a gqirha, sangoma, initiated as a young man, initiated as a young lady, initiated as a wife, initiated as an artisan to draw on the wall, then you get exposed to that language. I think a big chunk of cliques are contained in izihlonipho. And then now there are languages that tended to not have cliques, like Chivenda. So if you look at Chivenda and languages like Kilubedu, when you look at the pronunciation, you will not find cliques. So, for example, a word like ndau for a lion, it comes from a click rau, which means to hunt. Rau, to hunt, gives us ndau, which is in Chivenda used as for a lion. So you can find a lot of words like impuku, mbiba ombeba, it's eba, which means little tiny one. Eba. So that click is dead, it's softened. So it's not so much that the languages that have no clicks or less clicks, how do I put it? There's evidence, there's clear suggestion that it's the same word, but on one language, the word it's softened in pronunciation. So the click has died completely, but the word is still there. I'll give you an example. When you say hlamba, wash, someone from Burundi will not know how to say that. They will say shamba. Same word, but the sound. So I think certain languages, especially the further north you go, they tend to speak from further back into the mouth instead of forward. Because when you use clicks, you speak from here, from the teeth area. Everything is done in the front of the mouth. So I think the languages like Chivenda, Kilubedu tend to speak further back into the mouth. So they replace the click with the next best sound. Vatsonga will replace the click with the lateral fricative, the alveolar lateral fricative. So the Vatsonga will use a lot. The Bapedi and Botswana will use a lot, the guttural sound, to replace clicks. So instead of kaula or kauka, they'll use kauka. You see? So there are attempts to replace the click with the next best sound. But if you go to another language, the kauka becomes kauka or kaula, like in Chivenda. So I think it's a phenomenon of metathesis. Linguistically, it's called metathesis, where sound, linguistic continuity. What gives me confidence is that these languages are the same. It's just that the sound is replaced, but the languages are the same. There's no doubt that Chivenda, Kilubedu, Chikalanga, Sipedi, Setswana, Spulana, Sesotho, and then you go to isiHlubi. There's no doubt that there's a continuity amongst these languages. But on one extreme, it's clicks pure. On the other extreme, there's no click at all. But you can find the exact same word in all these languages. When you go back, you will find a click. When you come to the most modern version, there's no click. So in linguistics, that's called metathesis, a metamorphosis of languages, where syllables change places, but also sounds change over time. A B becomes a V. Like Bantu becomes Vanu. Do you understand? Bantu becomes Vanu. So how did that change? Ba, you are inhaling when you say ba. But when you say Vanu, you are exhaling. So that means at some point, these languages diverged in terms of enunciation. So we would have to study now the enunciation structure, the structure of how we pronounce words, and whether the cultural practices influence that or not. So I try to give as much context as to why I think some languages tend to have more clicks than others. Languages that tend to be used in rituals a lot will tend to contain older words, because rituals require integrity of language. Rituals require integrity of language. So when we maintain old rituals, we have to maintain old words that go with those rituals. That's why, as a Xhosa speaking person, I can find a word for same thing, for one thing that will relate to Basotho, for the same thing that will relate to Bavenda, for the same thing that will relate to the Ora, for the same thing. You find that in isiXhosa there's 8 names for the same thing. It's only now that this practice is dying. It's only now. So in isiXhosa, for example, when I greet, I can say Khotoba. Thank you, Saphumelele. Thank you. I can say Khotoba, which means I bring peace. I relate that to Khotong. You see, Khoto and Khotso, same thing. To come in peace. That O of the Xhosa becomes the O of the Basotho. I can say in Qwi to talk about this or Eb, and then use another language for Tsebe, and ear. So clicks are the foundational sounds, and all other sounds can very vividly demonstrated to come from the click. I can show you a T that's taken from a or a. I can show you a TS and a Z that's taken from a. In isiXhosa, when they say thank you, firstly, enkosi is actually, enkosi means you acting like a king. That's literally what it means. Enkosi, you are acting like a king. I've had Bongani and Libuhang, exactly same thing. Bongani, Libuhang. You see, the Baput will say Libuani. Anyway, and the Bavenda will say Libuani. When you say enkosi, you are saying you acted like a chief or like a lord, which means your actions show your status. I've heard people in Zimbabwe some time back saying Mtungwa, because Amantungwa are the royal clan of Amandebele, Zimbabwe. So I heard them say Mtungwa when they say thank you. So for me, enkosi is in that class of saying thank you. But halala is actually a good way of saying thank you as well, because halala means to praise you. Diagu halalisela, halala, I praise you. Diagubonga, I shout your name. But there's an old word, tatalahote. I will share the etymology someday. Unchu, tatalahote. Those are words that were used to say thank you. Unchu, tatalahote. You know, when I talk about tatalahote, I'm reminded of a word. The word is tsihaha, zakhalis kachachabi. This word, tsihaha, zakhalis kachachabi, it's what the now the English is running out. Those were the captains, the commanders of the army. They used to say when the battle is going on. And I heard Zakala is Kalis Gachachabe. When you say Zakala is Kalis Gachachabe, that's the sound that the axes are making as the men are fighting. That's the sound that the Mkondos are making as the men are fighting. It's funny because Umchunu said is Maskal. And I remembered, hey, this word is Yakal. It's an old word that was used in military. Because when you say Maskal, you're saying Maskal is Kali. Maklonyo madoda. Klasel. So yeah. Now I wanna address Yam's question about Amakotwa. Amakotwa are not Swati. Amakotwa are not Swati. Amakotwa are Bushmen. Kotwa. I explained it earlier today. Someone asked about Kotwa. When you say Kau, you're saying sharp, sharpened. Ikoqiwe. Into eqoqiweyo. Uqoqa mos is to sharpen something. You see this stick, it was not like this stick. This stick was not like this. It was a branch of a tree. It was taken from there. Yaqoqa. Yindu eqoqiweyo le. Yipomo yeqoqiweyo. So when you say oh, you mean to sharpen. When you say kwa, it's a name of izembe or umkhonto. That's why amaZulu say iqwa. Iqwa, it's iqwa. Qwa. Qwa, sharpen. Qwa, izembe or umkhonto. So qwa, umkhonto ololiweyo, umkhonto obukhali. Come on now. So qwa are the sharp weapon people. Jojo, it's a long stick that has been sharpened. Very long stick, like a javelin stick. Long stick that has been sharpened. Li Jojo. When you say qwa, sharpen weapons. Jojo, tieka, zikali. Skalmazembe, butsolo bentonga. Butsolo bentonga, the sharpness of a stick. These were ironsmiths, these were weapon makers. In fact, the qwa were independent, they were not closer. In the 1600s, they were independent, they were an independent nation. They were an independent nation, Amaqoqo. Just like the other nations like Amangosini, Amaqoma. These people had their own kings until they were incorporated into the Xhosa alliance. Because being Xhosa, it's being allied. It's an alliance of nations. It's not people who came from one man called Xhosa. That's like nonsense. They were independent groups. Amaqwati, Amaqiya, Amaqoqo, Amangosini, Amaqunu, Ama-Inkwa, or Amqumqwa, Damasonqwa, Amadamakwa, Mampondo. Even Mampondo themselves, they're a union of different groups. You have Amazocho, you have Amakang. These are different groups that became part of Amampondo. Even Amampondo is the same thing. It's different groups that joined into one. Even Amazulu is the same thing. Even Basotho is the same thing. All these groups that we call ourselves by, if you look down, deep down, it's a federation of clans and nations and chiefdoms and kingdoms. It's the same thing. Because our nationhood was determined by allegiance to kings. So it doesn't matter uba ungumbo, ulilala, uliqesibe, ungumgqunukhwebe. If we have allegiance to one king, we are one people. So Amaqoqo were an independent group. They are not from Eswatini. I've heard that story, but it's not true. Amaqoqo are weapon people. They are weapon makers, warriors. The warriors, they were called. Let me check. Actually, there's a clan name of theirs that suggests this history of Amaqoqo. They are called Qoqwa, Zikalimazembe, Mabombo. I think it's this thing Mabombo that people assume it talks about Libombo mountains. But Ibombo, remember, it's a ridge. Ibombo is something that connects something to another. Like here, from my eyes to my nose, there's a ridge. It's called Mbombo. So Ibombo is a connector or even a bridge. Libombo. Jojo, Tieka, Bizana, Khwayimpi, Mkhonto Changelanga. Yava? Khwayimpi, the one who provokes a war. So Amaqoqo are absolutely Bushman people, not Swati. And being Swati doesn't remove their Bushman you know, as descendancy, because even the Swati themselves, you have there about Maswatom Tabu, about even amongst the Swati, you have a lot of Abatwa, the Khegwi, they became Ongwenya. They took the Ngwenya surname. The reason they took the Ngwenya surname is because Kwena, which means Kwe people, sounded like Kwena for Ingwenya. So amongst the Basuti, they became Bakwena. Amongst the Swati, they became Ngwenya. So you find a lot of Ngwenyas abang Abatwa, just like Bakwena abang Abatwa. And Batau. Tau, remember, it means cow, lion, like Let me read the other questions. Yes, Xhosa is definitely a federation. My take on Nguni languages. Look, I mean, the languages are mutually intelligible. Né? They are mutually intelligible because they have the same foundation. I wouldn't call them Nguni languages, but I mean, maybe for simplicity, people call them Nguni, but these are... And also they exclude a lot of languages from this. So normally we say ukuzunda. We categorize these languages based on speech patterns. Ukuzunda is to speak like a Xhosa person using D, Z. When you say D, Z, Z, Z. And like the Zulu people, ngi, ngiyazama, ngiyakwazi, ndiyakwazi, uyazunda. When you speak like that. So we say isizunda. But when you say T, and T, for example, the Baput will say Giagiati. No, the Ngwenyas are not Baput. No. They are actually Khegwi. Remember, the Khegwi were part of Baputi themselves. The Ngwenyas were definitely Khegwi people. Kwena. I actually have documents about this, so I can share them in another live. So you have ukuzunda to speak with ndi and zaza and ngingi, and you have uktekela to speak like with t. For example, timnaz letinzaba ungchela tona. Timnaz letinzaba ungchela tona. That's how a Swati person would sound. A Puti person would say timunati, or timunazi letinzaba ukijeta tona. You see, so that person yatekela when they speak. So these two speech patterns is what we would use. It's like they're speaking the same language but with different forms of pronunciation. So bayazunda, bayatekela. Now abantu abatekela sometimes abanye babeyeyeza kudala. For example, instead of saying ukubeletha, they would say ukubeyetha. So ukuyeyeza oko ukubeyetha. And then you find this amongst the Baputi even today. Baputi people will say ngiyithebile letfo loyikhulumako. Ngiyithebile letfo loyikhulumako, which means I trust what you're saying. Whereas a Xhosa would say ndiyithembile lento ithethayo, and a Zulu would say ngiyithembile lento ikhulumayo. A Mputi would say ngiyithebile letfo loyikhulumako. So Baputi then bayatefula and bayayeyeza. Now there's a third way of speaking of Amahlubi and Rondroza sometimes, like Abampondo and Ayangangazi. So instead of saying angazi, a Hlubi person would say angazi, nga. Instead of nga, angazi, would say angazi. And then ukundrondroza, it's similar to sindrebele saka gegana, sindrebele saka mulendlana. So ukundrondroza is when you say, instead of muntu, would say mundru. Sindrebele, mtram. Not all Amampondo speak like this, but some Amampondo absolutely do speak like this. As someone who speaks Sephuthi, I've been in a couple of groups, WhatsApp groups with Amandebele, Awagegana, who speak like this, and I can say that language, it's like this twin of Sephuthi. It's like the twin of Sephuthi, and Bandrondroza as well. So this is the indigenous way of categorizing languages. We didn't have Nguni as a group. We had abantu abazundayo, abantu abatekelayo, abantu abakhafulayo, abathefulayo, abantu abayeyezayo, abantu abandrondrozayo. And then sometimes it's an overlap. And that's the most beautiful thing. These languages overlap, which shows you that to even try and separate them is retarded. It's the same languages, but spoken in different adaptations based on whatever reason. So, you will find that people who are closer to Basotho will speak in a specific way. They will tend to not nasalize words like Baput. They don't nasalize. They don't have a word muntu. They don't have it. They tekela, but they don't nasalize. The Swati people tekela and nasalize words. So Umswati, no, not Umswati. Liswati will say umunvu or munvu. Whereas a Puti person will say mutfu. So a Puti person does not nasalize, and therefore they are forced to kafula when they speak. So bayatsefula, bayakafula, bayayeyet. Mutfu lo ukhulumani. Agimyati mutfu lo kutsi uyiyekeki. Agimyati kutsi uyiyekeki. Ukhuluma labani. Hey, they speak, it's an interesting language. Yet ilimi elimnazi kakhulu. Athi umphuthi akhulumako ngimveke idlebe tami, give mnazi ngekhathi lami, give kumimithe kahle itiyo ngoba ngiyalithatha lelimi leli. Bebantu belikhuluma ke bomkhulu libocece, labonkeke libomkhulu bami. Babelikhuluma ke nako leti ke bhili lelimi leli. Hayi ilimi leli mnazi kakhulu na, kabe ke mina ngiyadiqaja ukuliyati. Isiphuthi leso. Bayayeyeta, bayatsefula, bayakhafula, bayatekela. So the Baputi, they mix everything when they speak, but they don't rondroza like the Ndrebele people. The Ndrebele people who sumayela, eman Ndrebele la sumayelako, la bakuluma sin Ndrebele sakagegani, baya sumayela bon, baya rondroz. But it's very similar to Siput. So these are indigenous categories based on speech patterns and pronunciation patterns. Not based on what some reverend from Europe said. So, forgive me, but I don't go with that Nguni language is crap. I don't go with it. Yes, you can say maybe Abambo language or Amantungwa language or the Zunda, which makes more sense to me because Zunda is not based on ethnicity but on pronunciation. How can you group people based on ethnicity, but how can you group a language based on ethnic groups? You group a language based on how they speak. That's it. So so-called Nguni and Botswana, people must find ways in the cultures of those people. They must find how those people categorize their speech patterns. Same as Bavenda. How do they categorize their own speech patterns? You can't come from outside, categorize people, label them, and then force everyone to go with that. Because now, you have people who speak in a certain way, but they may not necessarily be related. But now we are forced to believe these people are related because they speak the same way. No, speech and relation are two different things. That's why today, when Hlubi people say that they are not Zulu, people get angry. Because no, you guys speak the same. No, the way you speak and your lineage are not the same thing. Thank you, Anele. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Anele Chendile. Thank you so much. So, speech patterns are not the same as ethnicity or your descent. It's not the same thing. Bayazunda. So, as you say, Mukaranga, the Kalanga people, both Zunda and Tekela. I think the Kalanga, probably had quite early influence on these languages. The Zunda and Tekela languages, they had quite a strong influence, especially on the Tekela. Back in the day, in the days of, or maybe shortly after Mapungubwe, they definitely had some strong influence. Whereas nations in the Mozambique side had strong influence on the Tekela language speech. But all these are founded upon Kwi dialects and Karanga Zezuru dialects. So In KZN, Bumalanga, there was a group of people who were called Khegwi. The Khegwi speaking people, if you listen to if I read a sentence for you that's spoken by Khegwi people, if I read the sentence, you would think it's Zulu. It's a Bushman language. So you would realize that Zulu and Swati, so it's basically Khegwi. And you go to Xhosa, you realize, it's basically Kwi and Kham, etc., etc. For example, names like Baba and Bawo, Tina, Si, etc., etc. This is from the foundational languages. So we need to then take these Zunda and Tekela languages, put them here, and look what is the source of these languages. And that's where our true freedom awaits us. Bongani is asking, is there a mission to decolonize identity politics? We should. We should decolonize identity politics. Because this is what people do most now. If you want to get votes, appeal to people who share some identity. Stuff to get votes from the LGBTI community. Use colored oppression to get votes from the colored community. Use Zulu identity to get votes from the Zulu voters. It's effective, but is it sustainable? We need to, if you learn or you allow yourself to explore identity in South Africa, you will realize that it's an imagination. This thing we call identity, it's imagination. It's not real. Our true identity is in our essence, Ubuntu Betu. That's our identity. And Ubuntu Betu is not dependent on your ethnic community, your kingdom. Ubuntu Bako transcends. It transcends Ubuzulu, Nobuxhosa, Nobupedi, Nobutsonga. It transcends that. It's the fabric that connects you all. Bushmen, Ayiko Lond, it's not a real thing. I just use this purely for academic purposes. Ayiko Indo Bushmen. There are no people called Bushmen. Abatwa, the word, when you say Abatwa, is exactly equivalent to the word Abantu. When you say Chwa, Twa, Abantu, all these words come from cliques. Kwa. So, there's a group of people known as Amangqongo. Mangqongo, aphelele fast, the Springbok player, Ngqongo. So if you go to Northern Cape and Botswana, they are called Ngung Kwa, which means Ngqongo people. But in Eastern Cape, Ngung Kwa, the equivalent would be Ngqongo Twa. Ngqongo Twa, Ngung Kwa. The equivalent would be Ngqongo Twa, which means Abatwa Bengqongo, which means Abantu Bendlu. Isiduko sendlu, the house clan. So Bushman in and of itself is not a real thing. It's just a label like Nguni and all these other ones that was used to categorize the indigenous people of South Africa into three groups: Bushman, Hottentot, and Bantu. Which is all stupid labels. It's dumb labels. Because all these people call themselves humans. Whether you say Twa, human, Kwe, human, Bantu, human, Vanu, human, Kwa, human, E, human. We all call ourselves one word, Singabantu, and that's it. So they can't change that, unfortunately. They can't change that. So now, there's a question that I didn't manage to answer here. Umqoma ligama lomntu or ligama osesikahlelo, and I have interest in origins amaqoma. So qoma it's ligama lesizwe. Amaqoma ligama lesizwe. It's not an individual name, it's a national name. So our people, when we lose our history, we tend to create our history from scratch. Qoma is a national name. Omani. Abantu bakwaQoma. Ayisosikhahlelo at all. It's a national name, which means sisizwe amaqoma. And then esasizwe samaqoma is related to other groups such as amantsundu, ngcuki, amangqongo, ngqwa, amacam, xembu, bathembu. So sisizwe eso, ligama lesizwe. Now the word qoma in and of itself, it means a couple of things. Ukhona uqoma uthetha ubufutshane, short people, qoma. Ukhona uqoma uthetha ubude, tall people, qoma. Ukhona uqoma uthetha ukusika, inyama. Ukhona uqoma uthetha a bow, a musical bow to make music or to shoot animals. Ukhona uqoma uthetha a stone, lityele ngonyama. You see, so I don't know which one it refers to, but they are Bushmen. Gabantu, basically, abatwa. They are related to the Omani Mu people, Nkwa, aka Yamangrongo, Abantu Bakwansundu, Amaqoma. Then there's another question here asking about, let's see, Amamvulane and Obai. Hey! Yeah. Experience. Sometimes people of the same nation deny each other for historical reasons. For historical reasons, things happened in the past, and therefore they sort of like separate each other. In my own clan, in my own nation, Amamfene, you have Amamfene who align with who believe they're the original Tina, us, Oshat. And then you have Amamfene who are called Zaba. They are treated as outsiders. Ne? And then thirdly, you have Amamfene who call out the name of the Tembu chief or Tembu royal prince. They are the same people, but because of historical reasons, they separated each other. Bakwayiwe Obai, Kwamvulani, they were reduced in status. Just like Amakwai amongst the Chawi. It could be that. Or it could be true that these are just two different nations. Amamvulani, being a nation descended from, there's definitely a relationship between Mvulane and Bai. That one is quite evident. And I think there's a historical reason why they've always fought back and forth, denying each other. I'm not going to say any more because I'm going to be lying to you. And then someone said I must talk a bit more about Amantungwa. Oh, someone also asked about Tregui. So Tregui and Ntungwa are interesting because when you say Ntungwa, you remind me of the Kwe word Ungwa, which is a nation, by the way. Which is a nation of Abatwa. I believe these are the predecessors of Amantungwa today. And then we have Tregui, who moved over to the Mpumalanga side. Interestingly, amongst the Watsonga, you find the Hlengwe people, even in KZN, Hlengwe may be related to Ntungwa or Kongwa. So Amantungwa they are said to be a group of people who in ancient times had relations to nations. They had relations to nations in what is now northwest. Thank you, Hey Bailungi. Thank you so much. Thank you. So Amantungwa had relations to nations who are in places that are occupied by Botswana and Basotho, basically. So Amantungwa were, in ancient times, they were close to Basotho and Botswana. Let me just put it like that. In fact, when you look at their material culture, the material culture of Amantungwa 300 years back is very similar to the material culture of Sotho-Tswana groups. Which tells me that the Ndungwa ancestors must have moved in between these two areas, KZN and Sotho-Tswana occupied areas. But we came down with this basket that is woven. We were following the grasshoppers. But Sibuya ebunguni. Bunguni, remember, I told you, it means the northern or highland. Nguni means highland or north or high class. That's it. So if you're in KZN, places like Joburg and northwest, kusebunguni there. It's Bunguni. That's it. If someone who came from there went to KZN, would have been called Umtu wase Bunguni. I'm not saying Mandungwa came from there. I'm saying material culture suggests there were relations with those groups. So whoever the Ndungwa ancestors must have been, they would have been common between they would have had groups in what is now Gauteng, Northwest area, and groups in what is now KZN. In fact, when they talk about, when the Sotho speaking people talk about Bakoni and Bavenda talk about Vangona, to me, it just makes sense to be the Nguni people, high class people, highlanders. So Amandungwa then are those nations that are considered the original Zunda speaking. So you would have the Kumalo, you'd have Amazulu, Omageba, you have the Kwabe, you have the Kumede. These would have been called Amandungwa back in the day. I know Ushaka himself, they called him Indungwa Langasentla. Ushaka, Bambizi Ndungwa Langasentla. So these people would have been Amandungwa. Whereas the people who were goldsmiths, blacksmiths, iron smelters, they were called Amalala. The Mkizes, the Ngobos, the Ngolosis, the Dlaminis, your Khadebes, your Ngwanes, Ngamalala, Bembo. Abantu Abemba izimbiwa. So then Amandungwa would have been the Kumalos, there are some Dlamini Zuantungwa, Omalandela, the Zulus, and many other clans. I'm gonna say them now. Ombata, Obiela, Ondaba, etc. Those would have been Amandungwa. Now, their speech is closest to Isindebele Sase Zimbabwe and this is Zulu. Isindebele Sase Zimbabwe and this is Zulu would have been the closest thing to what the old Ndungwa people would have spoken. So Kasteda Amandungwa when we or Maskulma Amandungwa, Skulma Abobantu. I'm not gonna get into the details, I'm just giving a brief overview of who I'm talking about. Bayazunda, when they speak Bayazunda, like Amaxhosa namazulu, namandebele, akwanzunza, namandebele asezimbabwe, Bayazunda when they speak, abatekeli, abathefuli. And then someone, let me see. Bangoni, you see, the Hlengwe, ne? They fall under the Chwa people in Mozambique. The Chwa are Hlungwani. Chwa, I did mention, you say Chwa, Va, Chwa, or Abatwa. In fact, in Zimbabwe, we have people known as Chwawe or Chware, Yichware. They are there living in the bush there. About Chwa. In the Eastern Cape, we have Abachawe, Chwawekwe, Amachawe. Hey. So when you say Hlungwani, for me, it reminds me of the Ungwa Kwe people, which also reminds me of Amandungwa. So at Amandungwa, sehla ngesilulu silandela izintethe. You realize isilulu was also quite present in the areas where Masutu and Abatswana lived back in the day. It's a basket, a finely woven basket for storing mealies and sorghum and other things. Let me see if there's other questions. Suggest books to read. I will suggest books to read in it's gonna go crazy. That one, there's 4 sections in the booklet. First section, it's body parts. The second section is clan names. The third section is mountains and villages. Then the other section is rivers. It's gonna go crazy. It's gonna go crazy. So I do have 2 books that I'm currently writing, but I'm gonna push the booklet first so that you guys can have something to nibble on so long. And then there's a big book that I'm really writing. It has to be multiple volumes. So yeah, there's that. Let me read the questions. The TikTok historians who are misleading our people, black and colored, need to be recalled out. Absolutely. Black and colored people, if we really go deep into who they are, man, I think there are some people, if black and colored people would actually embrace the truth, it would not serve. It would go against some other people's interests. Let me put it like that. It would go against some people's interests, and therefore they need to invest money literally to drive division. They need to register organizations to drive division and invest millions to drive division. Pay people to lie. They need to pay people to lie. Therefore, if we want the truth to be out, we need to be willing to pay money as well. We must be able to pay money. Thank you, Anele. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone who's gifting. There are people who are so invested in lies being peddled and propagated in this country that they are willing to form organizations, groups. They've got hundreds of thousands of followers, and they invest real money to ensure that you are stripped of who you are. Now, to restore that, we have to be invested as well. I've spent a good 10 years plus working on these things. That's why I'm not reading. I may look at some notes, but I'm not reading. I'm actually speaking from experience, from things that I know, people that I've spoken to, places I've traveled to, people I've met, things that I've dug and found. Took me 10 plus years, and I'm willing to share it. And it takes time to find these things. It takes time. When you're looking for these books, the further you go, the more foreign they are. These books, you find them in the University of California, under the University of California, University of Stanford University. These books are written in Portuguese and German. Books about us. Books from the 1711, 1689. Books from the 1500s, written by the Portuguese in about Delagoa Bay. They are written in foreign languages. You need softwares to translate. You need softwares. Some of them are written in old fonts that you don't even know how to read. So you must go and translate, find a software and translate. So to tell the truth, there's an actual cost, and we need to be willing to pay that price to be able to tell the truth. I promise you, in 3 years' time, the narrative would have changed. Because if you look now, the liars are peddling their lies at a very high rate. They're investing money, they're traveling countries to push and propagate lies so that they can have you in their control. Power Bangoni and Bangoni. You see, the word Ngoni, Bangona, according to the vendor people, Bakoni, Gona, according to the Kui speakers, Guni and Gunu, according to Kwedam speakers. This is the same word. We should not be lazy, though, to find the most convenient explanation of these words. And that is where we get lost. We are lazy to contrast and compare things. We don't want to expand. And that's how we are caught in lies. Because Bangoni, Nguni, Kone, Ngona, Oni, Gona, and Gunu. It's the same word. And Onin, same word. Highlanders, high-class people, high-profile people, people who live at the top of mountains or on the mountain slopes. I have receipts. So, in Kuinkia, when they're referring to a royal Tswana person or a high-class Tswana person, they say Gona, which is Ngona or Gona. They say Gona, which is equivalent to Nguni, high class. In the Eastern Cape, there's a group of people known as Gunu or Gunu Kwebe. Gunu, high class people. Or Gonakwa in the old dialect, high class people. So these are high class people. Royalty, nobles, that's what it means. Now someone will want to say Ngoni means abantu abangoni. Aye man. It's the same laziness that people use to say abelungu means abelumbi, the people who perform witchcraft, which they do, by the way. Beings, the wandering, the unstable beings, wandering. Alungulunguza. Abantu besizungu. That's why they call them bazungu in East Africa. So abelungu, abantu abalungulunguzayo, the one spirit, a demon, which is abelumbi. That's aligned true. So we need to dig deeper to this. Our ancestors were very complicated. Our ancestors were not simpletons. They were not simpletons. That's how they managed to live and be part of nature. They had to be complicated. They had to be complex. So we can't just find a word and use the most convenient meaning of it. We have to dig deep. We have to dig deep. You know, I am of the Mfene clan. So we say Mfene, Jambase, Anzi, Sanzanza. And then people are going to say, no, Mfene gave birth to Jambase, Jambase gave birth to Anzi, Anzi gave birth to Sanzanza. Come on. That could not be any further from the truth. This is the simplicity that keeps our people in a cycle of perpetual slavery. The apartheid has happened mentally now. The apartheid is no longer physical. Well, it still is, but it's more mental than anything. So you are separated from who you are, from thinking, from intellectualizing things, from understanding. You don't even understand your own language. Mfene, baboon, jamba means to be ugly, to have a prognathous skull, protruding skull, protruding skull. So Singabantu bempofu originally, before we took the totem as a baboon. So you find a liar there in the radio saying, Jamba say, no, all these were different people who lived. No, these were not people. So we need to completely obliterate these liars who use platforms to lie about our people. I know this King Pungane person who talks about, I'm sure even the name Pungane, he would probably lie about that name as well. Greetings, brother Lee Makara, Absheni, Black Root Science, Absheni. Nice to see you here. I love it. It's beautiful. Welcome to everyone who just joined. So we need to be complicated. We can't be simple about our history. There's nothing simple about it. Our people have thousands of years of history embedded in our DNA. But to tap into that, we can't just say, the word Ngoni sounds like those who don't see, it must be that. No. That's not the way to go about it. That's not the way to go about it. Think about how the name came about. 1. In what period the name was formed? 2. What was the thinking process of our people? Our people were not worried about Ukona at that time when the name came about. They were not thinking about Ukona. Our people were confident about themselves. They were not scared of wronging anyone because they had a set of laws and customs that guaranteed continuity. They're not worried about Ukona. Our people understood themselves as being nobles. Someone asked about the Chawe clan. Oh, someone actually asked the Chawe clan of Amaxhosa how they got to be kings. Also asked about the king of Khoisan nation who was protesting. You see, this is what I say when I'm saying they are amongst us, they are collaborators. Amongst the so-called queer people, you will still find people who are going to work with the enemy to destroy their own people. It's not new. It happened in the 1600s already. Who do you think was killing our people? It was our people being used as collaborators. You know, in the Eastern Cape, there's a place called Cat River Valley. Cat River is Ngwenya, which means Cat River, by the way. They imported a group of mixed race people, put them in the Cat River settlement to destroy the indigenous people there. And they did. Oh man, we are fighting on the wrong side. They realize we're fighting on the wrong side. Like Willem Eidhalter and Henry Ungogomesh. People like Willem Eidhalter, Henry, also called Ungogomesh. They rebelled. They were rebels. And they came back to the Xhosa nation and fought against the British. But we have people who will always fight against the right thing. So you will find people who act as activists, or will say they are reviving their history, but then they're gonna fight against everything that they should be working with. And I'm not saying the union buildings. I understand fighting against the government, because the government is very guilty as well. The government has wronged us. It's like we don't exist in our own land. It's like we're not there in our own land. So, but we have to organize more than anything. I like what Villa said. We have to organize a lobby. Just to share a little story. I've been pushing the whole thing of name changes, ne? Name changes. Names like Johannesburg, Pretoria. Fortunately, it was changed. Those names are not welcome, especially not for major places. We can maintain those names into parks and other things, but they can't be major places, because these places already had names before they became Johannesburg. It already had a name. So I've been involved in that, and I've had some government people reach out to me to help. But the ministers must reach out to us, because I cannot be traveling to my ancestral land and finding names like Stutterheim and Berlin. Why am I finding Berlin? Why is it Berlin in my land? Can I go to Germany? Ancestral names of places? No, I can't. So why is there going to be a Stutterheim, a Leiden in this country? We can't have Leiden, eh? Why do we have to have Eerste Rivier? Why do we need to have Breë Rivier instead of Kabakama? Why do we need Rafier Sonnerand instead of Kamakanat? Come on now. So we do have to be involved at government level. They need to come and consult us who've done research on these things. And there needs to be funding, guys. Unfortunately, if you don't have money, we'll just be making noise about these things. There needs to be funding. I think a few weeks back, I went to meet with the Poppy of the Poppy Show. And they were doing some work on the Eastern Cape. We talk about the Buffalo River, Qonce. I spoke to her about the neighboring river, Ichok. We spoke about East London as well, which is Kukombo. That's the actual name of the place. Why is there East London in South Africa? I want East Manzimtoti there in London. I want Namako in Germany. You're not gonna find Namako in Germany. You're not gonna find Khamashashane in Scotland. You're not gonna find Gaborone in Luxembourg. Hey, siyaqhelwa masingaqhelwa amanqatha anqumileyo madoda. Masingaqhelwa amanqatha anqumileyo namanqagiza apha. Why is our country being named with European names? And people say, oh no, it's just names. No, it's not just names. If it's just names, then let me change them. Since they don't mean much, ne? It's just names, Mos. So I can just change them. Yeah, let's have Umsinga in the Netherlands. I want Itegu in Italy. Yeah, those nice bays there. We call Eteguin in Italy. Let's see how that goes. Because we are being told here to accept that our country has Netherlands, Dutch names, Portuguese names. Natal, it's Portuguese, man. This guy was just a traveler. He was not even settled here. He was just traveling. And then he called the place Natalia. Why is Natal called Natal? Kusembo, pa. Kusembo. So the Department of Traditional Affairs or whatever, Sports, Arts and Culture, the Council of Name Changes in KZN needs to send me a message. We need to change Natal to Embo. We don't want KwaZulu Natal. What is Natal? give it power, and you give yourself power over it as well. Imagine your mother gives birth to you, and then some random person comes and gives you a name. That's dumb. Anyway, so I do understand the king of Khoisan, which is also just a weird name, doesn't exist. I understand the idea behind fighting the government, but you don't fight the government by lying as well, because there's such a thing as Khoisan. What is Khoisan now? What's that? Where does that come from? Who's Khoisan here? I know Kurikrikwa, I know Kurikrikona, I know Ohokwa, I know Gorakhorikwa, I know Kurikwa, I know Trinikwa, I know Kanikwa, I know Kuluna Place, I know Gwashu Place, Tonin Place, I know Tram Kake, I know Swakaka, I know Omani, Nkwa, I know Amakoma, Makwashu, I know Zulu, I know Xhosa, I know Ndebele, I know Pondo Hlubi. I don't know what Khoisan is. And nobody does, except the same people who smoking the drug of delusion. Oh, by the way, the name Dacha. You know the name Dacha is an indigenous name, eh? Dacha. Dacha, that's what it is. Dacha, which means to drunk, to turn something upside down. Ukudaka. That's why Amazulu say, is it Daka? Mizwa. The one that confuses feelings. The one that confounds feelings. When some people take drugs, they feel confused, they feel paranoid, they feel excited, they feel all sorts of feelings. Their feelings are discombobulated. Zidakiwe. Imizwa yabi dakiwe. Daka mizwa. That daka literally is dacha. I know in Eastern Cape it was called indacha. In Kwemana Kukogwab, Kwedam dialect, it's called daka. Daka. So daka is itself indigenous name. It's an old herb that was used here for a long time ago. They used to smoke it with water. I don't smoke, by the way. I don't drink, but I'm just thought I should share that. I think they are high on Dacha, some of these activists. Who are the Chawe? How did they become kings? Someone asked. The Chawe are the royal clan of the Xhosa nation. The story is Chawe fought with his brothers, Joacha and Icha, the original rulers, who had Kwemde helping. And then Chawe went and called the Khudulu people, the Nuba people, to come and help him. Now, if you believe this, that's fine. I'm not going to say you're wrong. But I know better than to accept that these were individuals. These were groups. Chawe is a group, a nation. Icha is a nation. Even the name itself, Joacha is a nation. Chawe relates to Chiwawe, Chwawe, Chwawe Kwe. They are there in Zimbabwe today, in Botswana. Chwawe Kwe. Amongst the Amampondo, you have Amachwawe. The word Chwawe means the people of the salty waters, salt lakes. Chwawe, Ikiwa, we. So Chwawe are the Salt Lake people, Salt Pen people. It's a nation. Icha, these are the bush people. Gumti. Icha, full of trees. These are the bush people. Joacha, I think it's probably the same origin as Jew. Abantu. Joacha. So you have Joacha, Chawe, and Icha. These are related clans, groups, who are fighting for control. The Chawe clan ends up winning. And therefore they become the kings. They rewrite history. They rewrite history. So I'm not gonna go into the depths and the of the battles and whatever, but they got the kingdom through conquest. Thank you, Lorenzo. Thank you so much. They got the kingdom through fighting. The Chawe were able to garner support from other nations. For example, they went and collected the Khudulu Nuba people, the fish clan, to come and help them. Gave them land, and today the fish clan is called Little Land, Umhlajan. The Chawe went further to take Amabomvana from Pondoland to come and fight and disintegrate the Ngosini kingdom. The Ngosini kingdom. Ngosini were independent. And until they were independent at least by the 1720s when Paulo was in charge. They were still independent at that time. There's a book called The Folk Kafern. The Folk Kafern Xhosa. It's a German book. It's written in German. It talks about the battle of the Gaub, or the king of Amangosini. The Ngosini is saying Umjobi, who came to the kraal of Upalo with the tail of an elephant and an ear of the elephant, or a tooth, I think a tooth and an ear. He lifted these ones up. Therefore, he challenged the king of Amaxhosa. So the Ngosini fought. I think by the 1820s, they got defeated. So the battle of Amangosini and Amaxhosa took 100 years. By the 1820s, they got defeated, and then they were stripped of their kingdom. They became now Isbonda. To this day, if you go to Gajane, you do have some Ngosini chiefs there, but they are not kings anymore. They are trying to revive that, and I'm working with the Ngosini Royal House. So the Ngosini fought with the Amaxhosa. The Amaxhosa went and collected Amabomvan to help them. Before, when they fought with the Xicha and Jwacha, they work with other nations a lot. For example, in Cape Town in the 1650s, the Xhosa were already working with the Inikwe. The Inikwe, through the Inkwa, were connected with Amaxhosa and were trying to get the Cape Town nations to pay tribute to Amaxhosa. It's recorded in Jan van Riebeeck's dictionary. It's recorded. It's not word of mouth. It's pure fact. So the Xhosa were working like that, You come and pay allegiance to the king. The king gives you something in exchange so that you guys are forced to visit one another. You marry someone who comes from the Xhosa kingdom, from the Xhosa royal house. They marry someone from you. You establish those relations. Boom. That's it. So that's how the Xhosa even had some political ascendancy to the Cape Colony, to the foothills of the Cape Colony in the 1650s through the Qinikwa, who are today Qete, by the way. So that's how the Chawe got their kingship. And then Amaxesibe are the Ikwe, and who was the first Xhosa king? Xicha of Amaxhosa and Pampondomise is it the same thing? And who are the Amatsonga? Xicha of Amaxhosa and Pampondomise, the people are saying it's not the same. People are saying it's not the same, and I'm not going to force it to say it's the same. But I'm going to say it's not just Xicha. There's also Skomo of Amaxhosa and Skomo of Mampondomise. So we can say then maybe it's just because they lived in concurrent periods of time. They were contemporaries. Bebengondanga, which means then they would have been named with similar names. It happens. Like the name Zulu. You find Zulu amongst Amazulu, Bakwamageba. You find Zulu amongst Amahlubi. You find Zulu amongst Amatolo Omchenge. You find Zulu amongst Amahudulo Changisa. So these are 4 different nations. They all have Zulu in their clan names. It's not the same. So even with Xicha, I think they were contemporaries. Maybe Pila in a similar time period. Maybe 1 generation after the other, 2 generations after the other. My name is Sandile. Where I come from, there was a king called Sandile. In fact, to this day, there's a dam called Sandile Dam. Now, I'm not that king, but my name I'm his namesake. Imagine now if I had lived in the same period of time and I was also royal blood. So it happens sometimes that the pattern, the convention of Uktiya is alike amongst nations, but there's no proof they're the same people. Someone asked about Amatsonga and then the first Xhosa king. Well, I wouldn't say the first, I would say the earliest leader. Yes, King Sandile is the one who fought the British. Mgolombane. Mgolombane. That's King Sandile. And also, the Amampondomise, there's Xicha, same as Amaxhosa. There's There's Komo, same as Amaxhosa. There's Mte, same as Kwemte. Kwemte means people of Mte. So this is the kind of stuff I'm saying we must research and find. If it's true, this is the same people, that's good, because then there's more reason to unite. Now, Amaxesibe, are they Xesibe Kwe? Yes, there are Xesibe who are Kwe. There are Xesibe who are Kwe. The name Xesibe itself means the people of the desert, or people of sand. Xes is sand. When you say Xes, you're talking about sand, inhlabathi. So Xesibe is a sand person, desert person. That's what Xesibe is. Amaxesibe are Kwe merged with some Abambo houses, like many other nations. That's how our nations are. Just like Amahlubi are Embo merged with Abatwa. Amampondo are Embo merged with Abatwa. So it's the same thing with Amaxesibe. There's clans there that you can clearly derive Ubutwa Babo. Same as Mahlujini, you see. Yeah, no, Tsicha of Mampondo and Tsicha of Amaxhosa is the same thing. It's bush people. Think about this as someone who's lazy, you're ne? Someone who's lazy, you're Ngenecha is someone full of laziness. Someone who likes to sleep litong. We turn tong. So we call them tongocha. Something that's blue, we call it zulucha. Zulu, blue, zulucha. So tsicha, is a tree or trees. Tsicha then a place full of trees. Or people, tsicha kwe. In full is tsicha kwe. People of the trees, people of the bushes. So, based on the name, it sounds like a group name. It doesn't sound like an individual name, just like the name Xhosa. Xhosa is not an individual name. It's like Abakwa Xhosa. When you say Abakwa Xhosa, you do not think of one person. Now, I'm not saying the name is not attributed to an individual. It could have been attributed to an individual chief whose name was forgotten, and therefore he was just called Xhosa or Tsicha. That's also very, very possible. Very possible. Some multiple Kwe clans. There's no doubt about it. Xesibe, Kuma, Diwohlanga. I did a video about Diwohlanga, and I showed you the name D in Kham and Khun languages. I love this. These are people who used to live in the desert back in the day. These are people who used to live in the desert back in the day. Varonga, Vahlanganu, and then you have Bankuna, and then you have Amatonga. All interrelated groups, or even some would even say the same people. Vatonga, Varonga, Vahlanganu, Bankuna, Amatonga, and others that I did not mention. Amatonga are the most Zundafied group. I'm not going to say Ngunified. When I say Zundafied, I mean Ngunified. Of all these groups, Amatonga, you will find them in KZN still today. In places like Umaguza, Mateta, they speak isiTonga. So you will feel like Sisi Zulu with a weird way of speaking. Amatonga. They speak isiTonga. These are people who would inhabit northern KZN, some parts of Mpumalanga, all the way to some parts of Mozambique and Limpopo. They have a long history. They used to trade a lot with Portuguese. They wore, some of them at least, wore silk back in the 1400s, in the times of Great Zimbabwe even. So they speak Xitsonga, Shinkuna, and all the different groups. The Tsonga people can comment if they want to. It's fine. So they are an indigenous group that is almost like a breakaway, an early breakaway group from what the people that became Tekela. You see, based on linguistic patterns, the Tsonga are like the early form of Tekela, if I can put it like that. Now, you have a group of Amandwandwe who move from what is now KZN. Abantu bagwa Gaza, bagwa Soshanga. They move all the way to the lands of the Tsonga. And then that's how you have a Machangan. It is not an insult. The word Changan is not an insult. It never was. It's the people of Soshangan. Soshangan is a name. Gasa is a name as well. Gasa is a name. Soshangan is a name. Gasa is an indigenous name. Soshangan is an indigenous name. What does Gasa mean? Gasa means to rule over. Gasa, ugasela. To rule over, to conquer something. To exert yourself upon something. Uyagasa, uyagausha, like to rule over. To be someone wisdom. In fact, in Ora they have this word as ga or gaga or gas. In isiXhosa it's gasa. That's why we have people like Gasela. In isiZulu it's Gasa. So Ugasa, the one when they got to Mozambique, they said Gaza. Hence there's a place called Gazankulu. It's an indigenous name, Gasa. The one who rules over, the one who exerts himself over people. Now, let's look at the name Soshanga. Ukushanga or Uchanga is a word that Abambo used to use when they got to the Eastern Cape. To be hasty, to be very quick, to be swift. To be unstable. So there's a saying, ongahlali ndawo uyachanga. One who does not stay at one place is unstable. Ukuchanga is that word. It means to move from place to place. So changa means that the man who's known for ukuchanga. Changane is the exact same word. The person associated with ukuchanga. So Changane is the lord of Ukuchanga. Oyenamdu who's the most unstable. The person who moves from place to place. That's what the name means. So Changane. Gasa means to rule over, to exert yourself over, to dominate over. So Changane, Ugasa, these are names of people who came from KZN and went over to lands of Batsonga and incorporated there. So no, Tsonga and Changan is not the same thing. The people themselves, in terms of relations and living together, that's perfectly fine. But in terms of origin, Tsonga, they are quite an old group. They are quite an old group. So that's Vatsonga. I think we will do another session on this because, you can't really talk about these nations all at the same time. You kind of need to brush over. Just brush over and then move. Brush over and move. Yes, I will. So the reason why I did the live today was to just activate, to activate the features that I need to activate. The next live I'm going to do is going to be very long. Hidden Truth. Thank you so much. How do I say it in Hebrew now? How do I say it in Hebrew? Toda. Yeah, that's how you say it in Hebrew. Thank you is Toda. Toda means hands. I raise my hands up to you, or I receive with both hands. Kasbini Toda. Itandla. So the next live I'm doing is going to be very long. It's going to be very passionate and deep. So I think I'm going to close this live now. I think people gained a lot of knowledge from this. One thing I'm going to say, guys, I am on YouTube. Right now as I'm speaking to you, I'm editing the first session on YouTube. I'm running what is called Sandile University. I'm gonna go really, really, really deep. Please be patient. I'm trying to transfer 10 to 15 years worth of knowledge in small videos. So I'm gonna be doing detailed videos. Please don't only watch things that relate to your clan. Watch for other clans as well, because you never know who you are related to. So please check my YouTube. On YouTube, I'm Sandile Tukani. Sandile Tukani. That's my government name. I'm there on YouTube. Please subscribe. I'm not monetized in any platform, so I don't make any money with anything I do. It's all free. For me to monetize on YouTube, I need you guys to watch those videos. I need 4,000 hours. I only have 300 hours now. Embo, Mr. Bongani, Mr. Sapumelela, I will definitely, Sapumelela, I will remind you. Bongani, Embo is not one place. The word Embo means at the place of mining or at the place of digging. Ne? Imbo then is a city of gold, literally. Imbo or Embo, city of gold or place of precious stones. That's what it means. So, for example, the part of KZN that was called Natal, the part of KZN that was called Natal is actually Embo. That's how other people refer to it. We call that place Embo. When it rains to this day, when there's thunder coming, I will get out and shout at the thunder. I'm speaking to Unamba. I say to Namba, Buyelembo, Embo, Kwela Mangwane. Some people will say, Embo, Apokliwa kona ngwende bendala. So when I say Embo, Kwela Mangwane, I'm telling Namba to move to the east, to Natal. Why? Because Amabele were popularized by people who came from KZN in the Eastern Cape. Amazimba, Abovu, Amabele, Sogam came and became popularized by people who came from Natal. Therefore, when Amabele grow and sprout, rains come in big numbers. No, I'm coming to Mpumalanga, don't worry. They come in big numbers. People been taught then that Unamba uzofuna izvuno zakhe, the first fruits of Amabele. And people are like, no, but Amabele came from Natal. So Buyela Embo. That's where you'll get the first fruits. Unamba was associated with the weather. It's like Thor in Norse mythology or Baal in biblical mythology. So Embo then became what is known as Natal. But not only that, the eastern region of South Africa, Mpumalanga, Eswatini, were known as Embo as well. You would know they are in proximity to the Libombo mountains. That region was known as Embo. If you go to those regions, to this day you will find ruins of ancient civilizations where there was clearly gold mining. Remember, I said Embo is a place of gold. Natal, Mpumalanga, Eswatini, Mapungubwe, Embo, all these places. Even in Mozambique, there are ruins there, Manyikeni ruins. The eastern portion of the country, Kusembo. The northwestern portion of the country, Kusebunguni. But it's the same thing. Embo, Ebunguni, it's the same thing because it's the same people. So wherever there was gold mining, there was the digging of Ubedu, for example, Ubedu, such as what is Ubedu? It's copper. Isinyiti is iron. Imbasa was a strip of gold that was worn on the head. They had to dig to get these things. That would render them Abambo, Basembo. So Embo then would be the eastern region of the country. But we can take it further. If you go to the Sudanic areas, you will find evidence of gold mining there, and graves of people, graves of people, graves of people that were buried. But when you go to a region of Sudan, you will find a place that was called Inbu, which meant city of gold. So there's a line from that region all the way down south where there's clearly a track record of gold abundance, because you find these cities of gold here in KZN, Mpumalanga, Mozambique, Sudanic area, Kenya area, all the way to Kemet. So you realize that Embo is not one place. It's just the eastern region that is rich in gold. That's it. That's it. So here in South Africa, our Embo is KZN, Natal region, Mpumalanga region, all the way to Eswatini. That's our Embo. Now, I did say that I was going to suggest books. Ne? I did say that I was going to suggest books. You need to be careful when you read prose. You need to be careful because the majority of the time, the people who are writing these books have very little understanding of indigenous culture, if any understanding at all, or at the very least, if any interest. They have very, very, very little understanding, and they don't give a damn. So when you read books, you read with a critical mind. You choose what is you. It's like eating fish with bones. You eat the fish, the flesh, you spit out the bones. You can't swallow the bones. They're gonna hurt you. So some of these books, you need to be very, very, very critical. You need to always just juxtapose. You need to always scrutinize, compare and contrast with oral history, indigenous history. And the best tool you can use is language. Understand the language in the deepest level. At the deepest, they would say, dwelling on the highest O. You must understand the language on the highest O. So that you cannot be deceived. You can't be. They can't argue with that. You dwell out on the highest O. They can't argue with truth. So you read the books, but they're just a supplement. You must learn the language on the side. You must learn the culture. You must learn the rituals. You must learn the whole ecosystem and cosmology of our people. Because reading alone, you're going to end up in the same place where you started, in delusion of the highest level. In pure and utter delusion. Because the books were not written for you. They were written for a scientific society of Europe. They were written for the Queen of England. They were not written for us. We were not the audience. To them, we were these half monkey, half human things that were just wandering around. So when you read these books, you understand that they were not written for you in the first place. So you go there as a critic, not as a learner. You must look for dates. You must look for names and look for meanings of these names. It must check. You must go to traditional records, oral record history, and check. It must align. If it doesn't align, something's wrong. So, I would say start here. The Annals of South African Museum. The Annals of South African Museum. It talks about the material culture of the Cape Nguni in some section. It talks about the material culture of the Cape Nguni. This is where they have proper drawings of some of the princes. That whole art of dairy that we used to have. Buttermilk, the words that are associated with dairy. Inqaka, isheshegu, iqamthwa, imvaba to contain the milk, isimba lenqaka cheesecake. Cheesecake lisimba lenqaka, guys. Lisimba lenqaka. Because isimba is a clump of dough. A clump of dough. You can't know these things if you don't know the material culture of the people. You be eating cheese, you think it's Italian. No, lisimba lenqaka ed. Songa samas. Buttermilk, we have names for these things. Butter itself, yiphehla. Yiphehla because you put milk and then uyayiphehla, uyayihlukuhla ikwimvaba or ikwiqamtu. Uyayiphehla, then uyayithatha uyihluze uyifake esihluzweni. Yiphehla or ifuta. That's butter. No. You think you are fancy when you say, no, I want butter. Yiphehla, it's been there. Come on now. Go to a restaurant, you're ordering a rump steak. You don't even know what steak is in your language. Mbengo. And we follow their ways of doing things as if we don't have our own ways. You go, you order a brisket. Okay. Do you know what inxaxheba is? Do you know what intonyama is? Do you know what uskhotyana is? These are the things we need to awaken. So the book is the annals. Afrikaans Museum, the annals of South African Museum. Check it out. Look for it in PDF, or if you want to buy it from me, you can contact me via inbox, or maybe mention me in the comments. No, biltong is ours. Biltong is ours. We have biltong, we have dried fruits. These are our foods. When you say biltong, I think umqwaito. We used to kwaita everything. Remember, we didn't have fridges. So when we go hunting, we come back with the kudu. Not kudu. We come back with the kudu. How are we going to store so much meat? I'm in the bush, I'm hunting. So I need to cut it. Yayibanga. Yayibanga into strips, aka imibengo. And then I kwaita it. It becomes dry. Even fruit, the whole idea, even these things of being vegetarian and what. If vegetarian, idla mfuno. I literally have a dictionary from the 1890s. It's written that idla mfuno is a vegetarian. It's written. You go to Wikipedia, they tell you, oh no, the name vegetarian was invented by an American, blah, blah, blah. Oh, come on. Give me a break. We did have refrigerators. We did have cooling places. We did have storage facilities for food. For example, we used to store food kwizisele. Izisele are these pits that are dug deep inside the kraal, the animal fold, where you put all the maize there. Deep! These pillars, but it's elevated, it's up high. A tower. That's what a tower is. We stored food there. We used to store food in Tungo. Siswenye. So we had multiple ways of storing food. Underground, up there, kumadladla. That's why you have idladla in Totsital. On the rooftop to dry it. We dried meat, we dried fruits. You know, we knew foods that were for drought. Like we did hunting and gathering. Don't listen to their lies when they talk about hunter-gatherers. We did hunting and gathering. We did agriculture, farming, crops. We did herding, cattle. We did it all. We don't need someone to tell us that when they leave the country, the people are going to die. No one is going to die. So the first book is Annals of South African Museum. Look for it, find it somewhere. It's a good book. Maybe to edify your search, add the material culture of Cape Nguni. Do that. If you want it from me, I can sell it for you for a donation or whatever. But you can find it if you look for it. If you're able to find it, that's good. The second book I'm gonna suggest is a book called, let's see, A Narrative of Four Journeys into the country of Hot Nine. The book was written by Lieutenant William Patterson. This boy was like 25 years old when he came here. Why is he calling himself a lieutenant? He was 25 years old. I know him. I've heard about him. William Patterson. He came here to look for plants to plant there in the Royal Garden in England. If you buy from me, man, honestly, 100 rand, 150, I don't know. Whatever you think it's worth, I can donate it. Guys, before I close the live, how do I record a live? How do I post it? How do I post a live? No, the live is gonna end. Now I'm concluding now. I'm finishing up. I'm finishing up the live now. I just don't know how to put, because people are like, let me shade. I don't know how to shade. It's my first time doing these things, guys. I don't know these things. If someone can write the instructions there. So the first book, Annals of South African Museum, The Material Culture of the Cape Nguni. Second book, Narrative of Four Journeys into the Country of the Hottentots and Kaffraria in the years 1779. It was written by Lieutenant William Patterson. He was 25 years old when he came here. He met with the Xhosa king. He met with the Xhosa king, Kauda. Xhosa king was staying in a village, I think, called Mgwalana, just next to the river Bigakama or Bikama, Ulubisi. Bigakama means Lubisi. So this is the second book. I also have it. If you need it, you let me know, or you try to find it somewhere online. And then the third book, this one for people who speak Sesotho or Setswana. All my lives are saved automatically on TikTok Studio. Okay, I have TikTok Studio. Let me just see if I have it on the. Okay, I see. I'll check my TikTok Studio then. I'll check my TikTok Studio. It's fine. In fact, before I do the next live, I'll check all these things so that we can record them, because these lives are good. You're not gonna find this anywhere else. The third book, this one for people who have any history that connects to Sotho people, Tswana people, Lesotho area. You don't have to be Sotho or Tswana. You could be any group. It's called History of Basotho, Modern and Ancient. It's by Frederick Ellenberger. It was written and published in 1912 by the University of Cape Town. History of the Basotho, Modern and Ancient, Frederick Ellenberger. Compiled by Frederick Ellenberger and written in English by J.C. McGregor. Yeah, the Hlubi as well. If you're Hlubi, it touches on the Hlubi here. Anything that connects to Lesotho, Matatiel, Heschel. If you are Hlubi, you are Puti, you are Ngwane, even Amazizi, Tswana, Pedi, Batwa, Mamfene. This book touches on those. Now remember, you need to be critical when you read these books. It's not Bible truth, but it's good to build on. You see, you take everything, you compare and contrast, you juxtapose and scrutinize, you make informed conclusions. You don't just hear the word ngoni and think abantu abangoni like King Bungani. No. We are going beyond that now. So the book is History of Basotho, Modern and Ancient. I read this book years ago. It's got about 330 pages. When I read it, I think I enjoyed it. It was good. I'm not gonna lie, it was good because when it comes to lineages and genealogies, it's quite detailed, It's quite detailed. It's got details that you don't find anywhere else. For example, it will tell you about a king, when he was born, his mother's name, his uncle, when he was circumcised, the names he got when he got circumcised, when he was married, blah, 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 blah. So the book is called History of Basotho, Modern and Ancient. Try get it online. If you don't have it, you can inbox me. I'm gonna open a bookstore, at least so that I can buy data and stuff, So it's 3 books that I mentioned now. Annals of South African Museum, Annal van die Suid-Afrikaanse Museum, Cape Nguni Culture, Cape Nguni Material Culture. A journey, a narrative of 4 journeys into the Hottentots country and Kaffraria, and then History of Basotho, Modern and Ancient. I'm going to mention only those 3 today. We don't have to mention 15 books here. Only those 3. I think they will get you started. Maybe one last one is a book called Imbumba Yamanyama. For Klubi people, Pondo Mise, Pondo, Xhosa, that's a good book to know how to recite your clan names and all that. Imbumba Yamanyama. So those are going to be the books. That's it. I'm done with the live now. I'm just going to make one more comment on Tato's comment about Imfecane. Okay, I hear you, Siapumelel, I hear you. Yeah, because you actually use a lot of data, You use a lot of data when you host these lives. This live, how long was it? 3 hours? At least today, my data is not as bad as it was the other day. My Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi is good for other things, but when it comes to lives, it's bad. Yeah. So yeah, those are the books. 4 books. Annals of South African Museum, Journeys into the country of Hottentots and Kaffraria, History of Basotho, Modern and Ancient, Imbumba Yamanyama. And then lastly, for people from KZN, I will give you one book, Zulu Medicine and Medicine Men. This one, he talks about herbs. This one, he talks about izinyanga, herbs. It was written, let me check the year, 1909. It's actually part of the Annals of the Natal Government Museum. So it's a good book. Or just go to the Annals of the Natal Government Museum. Annals of the Natal Government Museum. You'll find stuff there for the Zulu people. Or anyone from KZN for that matter. So yeah, that's it. That's the end of the live. And then in terms of Imfecane, right? Imfecane, it's obviously used a lot in colonial terms. It's used to justify the stealing of land by Europeans. Europeans always want a Trojan horse. They always want a story they can use, They're always looking for a story that they can use. And unfortunately, our people have given them enough stories to use. They have given them so much stories. To justify stealing lands, they use stories such as Shaka was killing people, blah, blah, blah. Shaka didn't even meet most of these people, man. Shaka did not even meet some of these people to be killing them. There's no way that Shaka did all this damage by himself. That's nonsense. The Europeans were already in the country by then for a good 300 years, since the 1400s. They must not act as if they were not in KZN in the time of Mfecane. They were there. And also, they wanted that land. That land where the people ended up leaving their country or their lands to run to Lesotho, to run to Eastern Cape. Those people, their lands were taken by the European government. It became Natal, the colony of Natal. So you think there was some convenient Mfecane and all of a sudden then the people got the land? Aye man, no. It's like the story of Nongqawuse in the Eastern Cape. The story of Nongqawuse. There are so many parallels that you realize this was war. Mfecane, the name Mfecane itself, it comes from the word ukufeca or ukufaca, which means to press, to squeeze something out. So, for example, in isiXhosa we refer to wine making as ukufaca. Ukufaca, when you make wine, when you press it and squeeze the juice out, uyayifaka. So Mfecane is the one that's been squeezed out, the one that's been pushed out, the one that's been crushed out. Mfecane, it's a name that's used for a group. These groups, most of them lived in what became the Natal colony. That's not a coincidence. There's a Mfecane and all of a sudden white people take the land and the Mfecane ends. Aye guys. No. This is why we must tell our own stories. Yes, there were battles that took place, and indeed there was a lot of slave trade. The Portuguese got a lot of slaves from the nations in KZN and from the Swati nations as well, so Swati groups. Slaves that were captured in the time of battles were sent to the Delagoa Bay to be sold off. As slaves. So there were two centers of slavery. One in the northeast, Delagoa Bay, Delaguba. One in the south, Western Cape. Slaves were sold here. There's a tree that was cut off. They took the stump of the tree. They put a placard as a memorabilia, as a memoriam for the slaves that used to be sold under that tree. So yes, slavery. A lot of slaves were sold from KZN. But not just from KZN, even from like the Sotho areas. When they take your land, you become a slave because you're a beggar now. And the crazy thing is that the people who were pushed out of KZN went to Eastern Cape, ended up going to the Cape Colony to become slaves again. In the live and all that. I think I'm going to be able to record now in the next one. And then when I said the whole thing about data, people said I must share my number. I don't think I'm going to do that. What I can do, if someone wants to buy data or something, I can talk to that person via inbox. Yeah, I don't know, man. I just feel uncomfortable to share number like openly, you see, because you guys love what I'm saying. But trust me, there are people who don't. There are people who report my videos. There are people who steal the stuff I do and change it to fit their agenda. So I'm not going to share my number, but my inbox is open so that we can, that whole thing with data, it's fine. We can sort it out. But I would much rather prefer also, like, if you want to buy a book, you just reach out to me. Sometimes, this whole thing of donations and stuff, but it costs to get this information. Anyone who has tried to research knows this as a fact. It costs. It's not easy to find information about us. Even worse, to curate it properly. It's not easy. Whoever was in charge has made sure that even the books that were published about us, they had to be proofread. They had to be approved And I don't think anyone would approve a book that's going to speak against them. So even the books we're reading, you need to be careful. Sawubona translate. Mr. Lee Makara, I hear you, my brother. Then that means tomorrow I'm hosting a live again. But let's see, because the Wi-Fi sometimes is showing me flames. Otherwise, if it needs consecutive days will just... Anyway, guys, I'm out. Thank you, everyone who was part of this. I get you, man. I get you. 3 consecutive days. So today, tomorrow, the other day. I get it. I'll do it. Don't worry. I'll do it. I'll do the consecutive days. I'm out now. Amagu. Kosi. Please, guys, take care of yourselves. I'll see you in the next live and in the next video that I post. Cheers.